Try now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, they can hear you now.
Can you hear me? I don't know why I had this weird feeling before I got on that something was going to happen, and it did. All right, folks. We started off quick here. We got 186 people in the chat. I do have a couple stories I want to tell before we're all said and done, if we have time. But time being what it is, and we had things we had to do, and it's already 8:20. So we're running way behind. We're like almost an hour behind where we wanted to start. So that being said, chat is filling up quick. We're going to get over 200 people in here, and then we're going to get started. Hope everybody's enjoying their day. Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com, and right here, patreon.com/PRTpodcast. $10, $20, $30. Did you ever do the $40 tier? Okay, so we don't have that yet, but we will. Okay, folks, I promise. We're trying to get things done. People are asking about it. Each tier gives you a better swag bag. That's what it is. We did not have time to go and do the mail-offs. We have not had a chance to do that. I am sorry for the Patreon people who have not gotten their swag. Most of them it's just new people or people who have moved up to another tier. Everybody else has gotten their swag, and you're enjoying it and whatever. And I will make sure that everybody else who is a Patreon member you will get your merchandise. Don't worry. We're not trying to hold out on you. It's not the case. A couple things we got to talk about tonight, not the least of which is about Claudia. Now, I want to address that. I had some people slamming me because these vultures, they literally will watch my show. They'll watch everything I do. And that's fine. You're giving me views. I hope you know that. And then they obviously subscribe because sometimes they troll me in here. So thank you for that. We appreciate your patronage. And then they key in on everything I do and say, and then they attack me. Well, they attacked us because we didn't say anything about Claudia. And one person said that, I guess they claimed that they knew Claudia and that she had told them that she was going to be in my book. Now, I don't know if this person's telling the truth or not. This person messaged me saying that I'm a piece of crap because I didn't acknowledge her passing. Do you think I didn't notice? Yeah, she's in the book. And at that time, I was writing about it, and we were in the midst of trying to get her stories. Now, I've interviewed Claudia twice at length, spoken to her with Barton. Barton interviewed her for my book, helped me with the interviews. Like everything that we did, I broke it up, and I gave people kind of like an assignment. Can you do this for me? And, give me the interview and make it easier for me. Because when you're having to interview 60, 70 people and not everybody makes the cut, I mean, you have to, it's an undertaking. And so we had to delegate it to friends of mine. And these are authors that have written books before, that know what they're doing. And that's why I turned it over to them to help me. I would be a fool to go and try to bake a cake if I've never baked one before and not try to get a recipe, right? Not talk to a baker, not talk to somebody that knows what they're doing. You don't go pick up a gun and just start shooting it in the air. You try to find somebody to show you how to use it if you have a brain. You don't just go and drive a car. Same analogy. Another person said, why do you need all these people to help you? Because I don't have multiple versions of me. I'm still working on that.
Successful people delegate.
You have to, okay? If you have any sense in your skull at all, and every week there's a new podcast coming out, and then they want to ask advice, do me a favor. If you're going to ask my advice, take it. Don't waste my time. I'm going to give you advice, and then you're going to go and do what you're going to do anyway. I call people that do that ask holes, because you ask and then you don't, you know, it's, I do the best I can. I try to tell people, and then they go and do something completely different. And then this one person did that. You know what they did? Fell on their face. Then they said, they accused me. They said, I asked for advice from the wrong guy. Had the nerve to say that in a group. I was like, and I was on there. I said, I don't know who you asked advice from other than me, but you didn't take my advice. And then the person didn't say anything else. It's nice to pass the buck, but if you're not going to listen to what we tell you, in fact, he wasted Anthony's time too. This person's very lazy. They wanted all the acclaim without any work. I just don't deal with that person anymore. When somebody asks me about him, I'm just like, I don't, you know, we tried helping him. You want to blame me for your shortcomings? Go ahead. I personally think you spent too much time dealing with someone who wasn't good at what he did, and you picked up bad habits. You pick up the habits of the people you're around and who you deal with. I choose to surround myself with people who have had success at whatever genre I choose to go into. That just makes sense. That's what people should do. That's not what people do, though, unfortunately. So that being said, you know, I'm just waiting. I'm going to get the chat up here. We got about 260 people. Sue says that sounds like, well, I can't speak to your husband. I don't know if he's that way or not. Yeah. And so when you try to help people, sometimes it's not always a good thing. I did have a very good conversation with Jill Riemenschneider, her husband, Brett. Well, she's Jill that's her, I think that's her maiden name. But I had a very good conversation with them yesterday, and they're going to be at the conference, and they're filmmakers. They made the Bigfoot film, The Flash of Beauty. I watched it last night, or most of it anyway. It was good. I liked it. And they're going to make another one. So they're going to be at the conference. That's a good thing. We confirmed that. The other thing I did was talk to a guy named Gary Brand, who does Within the Myths podcast, and he's got a lot of good stuff, stories. Very interesting guy. He's going to come on the show soon, and we're going to talk, and I can introduce you to him. And I'm hoping that he makes the conference. Said he was going to try. And Paul Sinclair, unfortunately, because of he has to take care of a sick relative, and so him and his wife can't leave. But they're going to send me. He's going to send me his documentary, like his presentation / documentary, and we're going to play it at the conference for him. So he won't be there, but he'll have his information out there. We'll have a slot for him to do that. So we have that going. So if you haven't got your tickets, put them up on there about the conference. Conference is fast approaching. It's going to be big. It just seems like it gets, bigger and bigger. And it's just going to keep going. Unfortunately, I still have this cold. I apologize about this. What we need to do is, once this chat hits 300, we're bringing Barton on. and another friend of ours. And he's going to talk, and we're going to talk about what we know. We're going to tell you what we know. We can't tell you everything because that would cause a lot of problems. But I do believe there are. I don't even want to say that. Let's just wait until they come on. I'm just, we're not going to talk about that until the chat fills up. And then, of course, I'm going to tell you a couple stories. We got to do that. We got to. That's why you're here. But tonight is going to be about Claudia and what she told us. We're not going to give you everything because it's going to come out in the book, but it's probably going to be controversial. It always is. I wouldn't be me if it wasn't controversy. What I want to tell you though right now is there's going to be some controversy in probably both of my books. So get ready. I'm no stranger to it. I'm used to it. If you want to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs. That's what happens. So when you're trying to bring people together, there's always going to be this stiff opposition from the old guard. They're going to make their stand and they're going to try and do whatever. And for 60 years, things have been the way they are in the Bigfoot community. But I'm going to tell you this, things are the way they are until they're not. When I was a young guy, I was on a baseball team. For 5 years in a row, this other team had won. And I was in Pony Colt, I think, that year. And they were like, we don't have a chance. That team win. They win every year. And it just popped into my head. I was a teenager, and I said, why? I don't know where I came up with it. It hit me. I was like, things are the way they are until they're not. It's not even really a quote. It's just something that came to me. It was like, one of the things that I remember, and I'm a Cowboys fan. A lot of people don't like the Cowboys, but I remember when we were going to play the Niners out in San Francisco. My team, 1992 NFC Championship, was played in January of 93 for the 92 season. I was a teenager then, too, and I worked at a restaurant called Lone Star Cafe. It was a temporary job I had. Bussing tables, eventually became a waiter. And there was this guy there, and he was a Redskins fan. He hated the Cowboys. And he's like, y'all are going to lose. The Niners beat us. And I'm like, well, you're not the Cowboys. And I said, dude, why do you think the Niners? He goes, well, I knew the Niners were going to beat us. I'm like, that's the problem right there. Your team went out there with that mindset. I told him that day. I said, things are the way they are until they're not. And I told him, I said, they're not gods. They're just guys. They're just a football team. It happens all the time. The new supplants the old. Things change. People's mindsets change. Prayers to Deion Sanders. What happened to Deion Sanders?
Yeah, I'll never forget that Jimmy Johnson interview when the lady asked him, like, what if you don't go to the playoffs? And he kind of looks away from the camera.
That was Peter King that asked him that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Peter King, the interviewer, asked him, what if you don't make it to the playoffs? And he kind of looks away and he looks right back at him and was like, that's not going to happen. We will be in the playoffs. And
yeah, it won't happen.
And it kind of reminds me of back when we started this show, way back in 2019, like it's so long ago.
But still, 4 years.
Yeah, but in between now and then, there's been a lot of work that's been put in. The conference that we're doing now, you had said it back then, this is what I'm going to do. Like, this I'm going to bring all these people together under the same banner and bring them all to the table. And back before we even had 1,000 subscribers. And you were saying the same thing you did now, like, things are the way they are until they're not.
And when we announced the conference, people were slamming us. Yeah. They said things to me, Ken, Barton, everybody. They were like, do you really think you're going to be able to do this, blah, 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 blah. 480 people.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't light the world on fire, but we did it. Look, things have always been that way with me. Always. I was told, there's a rapper. I think he's a rapper. What is Tiny Timpa? What is he? A rapper? I don't know. He's from Britain.
I'd call him a rapper.
He's an African guy from Britain, basically. And he wrote a song. He's like, I used to be the kid that no one cares about. You have to keep screaming until they hear you out. That's what I had to do. I was like the forgotten child. My parents hated each other. I was never supposed to have been born. And they both at one time told me that in my life, that I wasn't supposed to be. And they were only together because of me and my siblings. It's a lot to put on a kid. But here I am. Been called half-breed my whole life. I grew up in the South. You know, in the 70s and 80s, things were different than they were even in the 90s, even in the 2000s. It changed. I was in school, and one of my teachers would call me a little half-breed. Both sides, Hispanic and white people. My grandpa told me like this. He says, you're a coy dog. Dogs don't trust you because you're not one of them. You're not, you know. And coyotes, they don't want nothing to do with you because you got that dog in you. And they'll try to kill you. My grandfather, he told me that. He taught me that about coy dogs. Dogs and coyotes both hate them. So he told me you have to get used to walking in two worlds. And my tia, I credit with a lot of my knowledge, trying to teach me about the spirit world, you know, in a godly way. And she always told me, mijo, you were meant to do this. You were born of two different bloodlines so that you could walk between two worlds. I just didn't know how serious she was and what it really meant. I was meant to do this. I know I don't get along with Vic. We're not best friends. I know there's been a lot of bad blood. He's said some things, and I've done some things, said some things, whatever. But he told me when I started working with him, he's like, you were born for this. He was one of my mentors. Didn't turn out good. I never thought in a million years he would do what he did. But holding on to anger does nothing for you. You can't transcend if you hold on to anger and hate and you have vendettas, or if you hang on to grievances, or, you know, what do you call holding grudges?
Yeah.
People tell me, well, you'll fight with somebody, then the next week you're friends with them. Why not? It's a disagreement. You air it out, you go on, you move on.
I mean, that's what adults do.
That's what adults do. If more people would do that instead of holding on to their salty, envious tears, collecting them in a jar. He's doing better than me. Last night I watched two great documentaries besides A Flash of Beauty from Jill and Brett. Seth Breedlove and Heather Moser. They put together American Werewolves, and then they came out with another one, the Texas Dogman Triangle. Somebody was like asking me, this individual who, he never pops up. JB never pops up. That's his initials, unless he's got to say something to stoke the flames. And he did it again a couple weeks ago. Oh, why'd you have Aaron on? They didn't interview you in Texas, and you're a big Texas Dogman guy. And I said, yeah, and a lot of things could be. The Astros still haven't called me to go play second base for them. I'm salty as heck about that. Why are you not calling me Dusty Baker? Come on, Dusty. Look at me. Don't I look like I should play second base for you? I'd be the best doggone second baseman you'd ever seen. Even though I'm 48 and got a bad knee. I don't know why they didn't. I don't care. They did a good job. They obviously did a great job without me. They didn't need me. What am I going to do? Add color to it? There's Dogman up in them there hills. And then, you know, they interviewed Lyle and Ken and Nick, and they interviewed some other people. I don't remember everybody, but they interviewed a bunch of people. Not salty at all. Who cares? They did a great job. Go watch it. I bought it. I bought both of them. I invited you, but you were asleep.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Of course, it was like 3 a.m, and you were doing all kinds of stuff because the pig decided to have a poop parade.
A feces fiesta, I call it.
Feces fiesta.
No, I'm going to have to find something that rhymes with, or that's an alliteration with urine, so I can come up with some other pun.
Yeah, when you look at that Dogman documentary, we were watching it, and my wife was like, she goes, man, it would have been cool if you'd have been on there. But, you know, part of that could be on me, too. Now, Heather had reached out to me, and I didn't get back in a timely fashion because I'm busy, folks. I have a lot going on. If you only knew what I deal with on a daily basis, Anthony, you could tell him, Tony. I mean, it begins.
We don't even see or hear all of it. Just part of it, and that's enough to make your head explode.
Yeah,
I don't want to be in your shoes.
I was telling you, like, it's funny how your most calming, easiest days are when, like, you're sick. That's the only time you get really time off. Is that
I
your
turn the phone off.
dog?
Yeah. Ironically, being sick is better for your stress levels than being healthy.
I'll say this. Imagine a 26-year-old person who's over 20 years younger than you, runs an apartment complex, calls you up. Once again, your guards are idiots. Oh, my God. Like, I never had this problem when I was out in California. I moved here, and things just are so inefficient.
WTF.
I am so tired of this slowpoke, whatever lifestyle. I'm sorry, ma'am. What can I do? I don't know. I guess y'all are stupid or something while she sips her Starbucks latte. I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll take care of that. Don't worry. Can you fire them or something? It takes everything in me to not react to that.
Those are the people who you have to pray for, but it's the most difficult to.
That's when you have the cut scenes in the movies where you walk in, you open the coffee and throw it on them, and they're like, ah!
Yeah.
And then they cut back to them talking, and you're just standing there going,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll deal with this. Don't worry.
Like some American Psycho scene or something.
And then sometimes there's people like over at the one place we did where the guy's like, I know who you are. I watch your show, and he was really, really cool. And everybody came out of the office, and they were like, yeah, he's been trying to get us to watch your show for the last 6 months. Like, why haven't you? Shame on all of you. Shame, ringing a bell. You know, it is what it is. And I can tell certain people don't watch my live stream. They're all about my podcast, and they'll message me in the middle of my live stream. Like, I'm live right now. Oh, okay. Well, I missed the show. Do you watch any of them? I was in jail. Oh, okay, so now you're in jail. As soon as I get out of jail here in, Belize, I'll start watching. Don't lie. Just say you don't watch it. I go through all kinds of stuff. But you know what? Life wouldn't be what it is if I didn't go through that. Whatever you're going through, give it to God. You're not made to go through life dealing with everything on your own. You know what I mean? And always remember that you have people that you can reach out to. People always say that, oh, I don't have anybody. Yes, you do. There's somebody that cares about you. If nothing else, the line's always open to the Father. I pray to him through Christ. You do what you got to do. But you got to remember always, you're going to have your detractors, you're going to have your haters, and you're going to have your people that are going to support you. Don't give the people who don't do for you too much energy. Give them enough energy to pray for them. That's it. And then let them do what they got to do. So we're going to get started here. We'll go ahead and get it set up.
You maybe want to talk about where we went today while he's doing that?
Oh, yeah. So
this is all Nelly. I mean,
my wife wanted me, she found this knife/sword store, which I didn't even know existed, called Austin Blades. And the owner, Frank Cruz, him and his brother Kenneth run it, and they've been there for 5 years. And they do knife sales and they do sharpening, and they have some amazing stuff in there. I got this, which is a karambit. I don't know if you guys know what that is or how that works. He's setting it up, and we're going to get this call going here. It's like that, or you can hold it like this. It's Damascus steel. Very beautiful piece, and it's got this really nice sheath. And they have a forge there, too, where they do custom work, and you can go and make it. They'll even let you come in. Well, for us, they offered to let us come in and help make a knife. And so whenever you check them out, go and check them out, And don't forget, they also have a website you can go to. It's called Austin Knives.
It's Austin dash
Knife, yeah.
yeah.
And then you go and check out the website, and they can deliver. They can ship.
Is it Austin Knives or Austin Blades?
Austin Blades. This is cool. Here in Texas, these are legal. Some places are not. You know what this is? Bam. Just got that lizard skin. You hit somebody with it, bam, upside the head,
It's 21.
knocks them out. Slapjack.
Yeah, the email is www.austin-blades.com.
This is a QSP. Now, this is actually Chinese, but it's actually well made. It's actually a very nice knife. There are a couple Chinese companies like Wei who do pretty good work. Now, this is a buck knife. I don't know if you guys, everybody's dad had one of these back in the day, but you ain't seen one like this. Look at that.
I don't think they understood what you did.
That is a buck knife, dude. Buck knives have always been real stiff. Great knives. Great company. But you just push this little button right here, and it pops right up. Nice, sweet knife.
Yeah,
And,
Beers Encrypted. They have some great Gladises and all
Gladiuses,
kinds.
yeah.
All kinds of great.
And then I got this one. And I have a bunch of knives, folks. This is, I don't know if the audience see that. CRKT. Does anybody know what that stands for? I don't know if you're into knives. I'm a big knife guy. And, you know, I like weapons. But CRKT is Columbia River Knife Tool. A lot of people don't know what that means. They call it cricket. And that's, you know, it's like, it's not cricket. And this one, this is a Winkler. I got this one. This is my favorite one, the one I bought today. My wife, like, she took me there, and it was a treat from her. You know, that is carbon steel. It is really, really sweet. If you could feel the smoothness of this handle. It's very ornate.
Don't forget the...
I'm sure we'll get reported, and somebody will say that I offended them somehow because I showed them knives on my channel, and now they got PTSD and whatever. Never fails.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Yeah. This one back here, let me see if I can get it. This one I just thought was cool. It's just it's a neat piece. It's a cutlass. And it's a really pretty blade. But it's got this, you know, it's got that basket handle on there. It's got a little pirate ship, and it's got the little skull and bones. And I thought that it was a really nice, you know, sword piece that go, you know, to complement my collection. He had some really nice stuff in there. Some from Japan. He had one that was from the 17th century, which I thought was pretty amazing. He had another samurai sword that was from the early 1800s.
That's a great point. Just say that the knives identify as spoons. LOL. Medicine chat. Madeline. Then we won't have to worry about.
So let's get this call started here, if you're able to.
And Winkler made the knives in the Last of the Mohicans movie.
Oh, did they really?
That's what Gil said.
Hello?
Barton, you there?
Yes, sorry, man. You come up as spam risk. First call. I'm not going to answer no spam calls. How's everyone doing tonight?
What's going on? Hold on 1 second. Something's going on their end over here. I hope everybody's doing good. Can everybody hear Barton?
Hello, all the paratroopers out there.
So, is Larry with you?
No.
No. Okay.
I think Larry's in the chat, though.
Larry said yes, but he's not. Okay, so got to get Larry on. Oh,
okay, let me add a call. Hold on just a minute.
Dang, another freaking, excuse my language, a spider, dude. Is that true?
What?
Is that true?
Is what true?
What Nelly just sent me?
Yeah. Because we couldn't hear it.
Oh, man. That's great. All right.
Okay, can everybody hear us now?
Yeah.
Hey, Wolf, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So, anyways, let's get started here. The point of this conversation is because I'm about to release a book. Okay, in fact, it's already been sent to the editor, and then it's going to be sent to the publisher, and it's going to be first formatted, then published in a couple weeks, and it'll be ready to be mass produced, and then hopefully ready for the conference. However, Claudia Ackley has passed away. She's one of the people that we interviewed for this book. Now, Larry Fisher, who is the owner of Larry Fisher and Sons Roofing, one of the things that I want to say is you, Larry, we'll start with you. You had a lot of conversations with Claudia. Is that correct?
That's correct. She,
okay, Larry, we're going to have to call you back. We're going to have to get you because the connection's real bad.
Connection's bad.
Yeah, we can bear. It's like every other word.
Okay.
Try talking. Maybe now we can hear you. I don't know.
Okay. I'll speak slower, but yes, Claudia and I, became good friends over Facebook, and we had several conversations.
Can the people at home hear me?
Yeah, they can hear him.
Okay. So Eddie just asked the question, Claudia, cause of death, anyone? No. No. We can't give the cause of death because we don't know. And I'm not going to mention names or talk about anybody in particular, but they're not allowing an autopsy.
Right. So, it was said that the cause of death was heart attack, but no one knows for sure. That's just hearsay. So, I don't think an autopsy was allowed. So, I don't know. I don't know how you would go about finding that out.
I'd like to forbade it because I thought it was a matter of law that in an unexplained death that it had to be an autopsy, except unless you're Anson and Scalia.
Yeah, I'm having a real hard time hearing you, Larry, and it's really important that
I am too.
So I don't know.
Okay.
Barton, why don't you go ahead and see if you can hang up with just Larry, and maybe we can do the conference call on our end. Maybe that'll fix his voice.
Okay, hanging up now.
Okay. Is Barton still? Are you still on, Barton?
Yes, I'm still
Okay,
here.
you're still on. Can the folks at home, can y'all hear Barton? It says Larry's breaking up. Can hear Barton. Okay. So, Barton, you were literally, and now Kirk, I just talked to Kirk Reed from AI, and he had said that it was a weird, synchronicity. Like he had just hung up with her, because you were about to interview her. Now, I had interviewed her twice. And I've spoken to her on the show. You were involved in one of those conversations. Yeah, and then there was multiple messages back and forth between me and her. She sent pictures to both of us. We have, I'm not going to sit up here and be like, we have the inside scoop, because Kirk Reed has a lot of the information too. So does Larry. But you and I interviewed her specifically for the show and then the book. Correct?
Right. I talked to Claudia. Yes, I talked to her Monday the 26th, and she was dead that Friday. She died that Friday. So I don't know, but I think I'm the last one that interviewed her.
It's Larry.
Okay, so are you there, Larry?
Yes, I'm here.
No, you sound better.
You sound better. Yeah, put me on.
Much better.
Here's what I want to say, folks, and I'm going to tell you this: when this book comes out, okay, and Barton and Ken both handled interviews for me. These books cross over, okay? The Dogman book is distinctly different from the Bigfoot book, okay? Because what I think and do with Bigfoot is different than Dogman, but we had people that are in both books, and now you're going to have a little bit of Bigfoot in one, a little bit of Dogman in the other, and it's going to cross over. That's why you got to get both books, because they are companions. Is that not correct, Barton?
That's correct, and I have to say they're going to be really. They're going to be a couple of little gems out there in the literary world, and people will definitely want to pick them up. I saw the final manuscript when you was done with it, and it was really, everybody thinks that the Humanoids is really a great book, and I'm grateful for that. But I think this book here is better because it really goes in depth into the experiences of a bunch of different people, and it's nothing is what it appears to be on the surface with any of these stories. It's like every story that we did for this book was like an onion, You'd have to peel off layer by layer, and there would be something below that, and you'd peel that layer off, and there'd be another mystery below that, and on it went. And
we had to stop
all really
at a certain point.
Stories. Right.
We could have just kept going. I mean, it was like
we could have went forever.
For both books. I mean, it was like, probably I'm going to have to do part 2s to these or something, or just continue it, because, my next project was going to be Ghost. But I appreciate you saying that about the book, that you think it's better than Humanoids. I don't personally, because it's, but I think your book is the best. But I appreciate the praise.
Thanks, Rob. I appreciate that.
But here's the thing.
This is really good. It's really good. And if someone can't read this book, and, you have to have an open mind when it comes to these mysteries, but if someone can't read this book and come away knowing and learning what's really behind the Sasquatch phenomenon, then, they got blinders on. And the title of the book really says it all. Bigfoot Phenomena.
Yep, that's
in plural, because when you see these things, a lot of people, more people than they started out living in a haunted house, or they were abducted by aliens when they were younger, or it's just one dot leading to the next, and really, it's really kind of self-explanatory. If once you read the book, I hope you come away, and I know they will come away learning something from that book. Both books, actually. So
I want to say this.
It's going to be great. I can't wait to get them out, and I can't wait to read it myself, the physical copy.
I want to say this, and Barton, I want you and Larry are my witnesses right here in public. She told us things that were very controversial, okay? Things that are going to be, and it's unfortunate that she passed, because she gave us permission to say these things. But now that she's passed, I don't want there to be anybody who can come and say, well, they're free to say what they want, but I don't want them to try to say we made something up or we added to what she told us. Because you or my witness, you interviewed her too, not just me. And Larry, you talked to her too, and so did Kirk Reed. And I want it to be said, honest engine here, okay? I'm telling you, all right? The honest truth.
She wanted the truth out there.
That's right, Larry.
That's why she reiterated it over and over. She wanted the truth, and that can't be with her death.
Yeah, Mr. Valentin asked a very, very loaded question. He says, was it cryptid related? I'll start with this. She said, and now, in fact, Barton, you say what she said about the cryptids and her impending, what she thought was. Go ahead. Say what she said to you.
Well, I'll say this. She was a perfectly healthy woman that walked and hiked 10 miles a day before her and her two daughters had that run-in with the Bigfoot in California in 2017. So after that, it was, I'm not sure how many people know the full story here. You know, there's a lot of things that she told me that she's never told anyone else. And she was surrounded by these Bigfoot, and they wouldn't let her leave. And the alpha male came up and hit her with some kind of, everybody calls it infrasound. I don't believe it's that, but whatever it is, that it hit her with it. And she ran back into the house, nauseous and disoriented. He called 911. 911 told her that they were not going to, just like they told my family back in 1975, they were not going to respond to any more of her calls, any more of her monster calls, because the weather was bad and all this. But anyway, she ended up having a stroke and vomiting blood and laid there, going in and out of consciousness for 4 days before the paramedics found her. And she moved away from California to Tennessee to run away from these things. And she told me, and I know she told Larry too, that she believed that these things were the cause of all of her health issues, the strokes and the heart attack and high blood pressure and the blood clots going to her lungs. And she was perfectly healthy before she was exposed to all these inhumanoid creatures. And when she got to Texas, much to her dismay, she found out that she could not outrun these things. As a matter of fact, they showed up at the Texas location and brought a bunch of their strange friends with them, like Dogman and other things. And anyone can say what they want, but I can tell you this truthfully. When I was taking notes to send to you, Wolf, I wrote down everything that she said, and nothing that I wrote down was made up. Everything that I wrote down came straight from her lips. I didn't know Claudia. I didn't know anything about her. I don't really follow people in the Bigfoot world and the Bigfoot news and all this, but she was very sincere and extremely intelligent and coherent, right up until the very end. Very articulate, even in her text messages. She was using punctuation and capitalization, which, people don't do. Some people say that she was so sick that she can't be believed. Nothing she said can be believed, but that's really doing a disservice to this amazing woman, because really all she wanted to do was help people and make sure people were safe. But yeah,
Yes.
it was very unfortunate that she passed. She had sent Larry a bunch of pictures, and she sent me a bunch of pictures, and she was set to send me a bunch more, but she never did get to do that. So
She also, because I'm looking through a long, long list of messages between me and her. It just goes on and on.
And some folks have called her delusional because she was so sick. But I'd like to remind everyone listening tonight that you can't take pictures of delusions or hallucinations. And nearly everything that she told me, every inhumanoid encounter or sighting, she had pictures of or ring cam videos of. So
Yeah, my first correspondence with her was
so sick that she couldn't be believed. They should just walk away from this person because they're not telling the truth. She was really intelligent and sharp right up to the end.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to say this. My first correspondence with her was in 2020. that I found, and it was on her old account. And for whatever reason, Facebook Messenger, she reached out to me. They took down her original correspondence with me. Okay, which is weird. It's gone. It's been deleted. You see my responses to her, but the main thing that she had sent me is gone. But she sent me some more stuff, and this is from the new account. She had made like another one, and this was a different account, and it's just like bunches of pictures, bunches of just. I mean, she was keeping me updated. Like I'm just sitting here scrolling through it. It was a ton of information. Yeah. And then we talked and we talked, and eventually we got on and we talked on in person. This is why what I'm about to release in the book, it's probably going to be controversial. And I wanted to say it, but I wanted people right now, to back me up, to know that she said these things, that she did talk about these things, and that I'm not writing a book and I'm probably going to get slammed. They'll be like, oh, well, she's passed away, so you made something up that she said so you could get... No, that is not the case. There is no embellishment. We're not making anything up. We're not saying anything that she didn't already tell me or Barton or Larry or Kirk. This is the thing.
Right, and of course, we had no idea that she was going to pass away.
Yeah, we were not... the stuff was already being written like it was done. Her part was already done by the time... Yeah, so... We talked about it as a group. We all kind of had a meeting, and you guys were involved too, Tony, Anthony, all of us. We had everybody involved.
I mean, it wasn't even just PRT. I mean, we're all PRT.
Like 10 of us.
It was literally anyone that had anything to do with it. I mean, you called us all up, and you really just wanted our input on it because it was a pretty important thing, and you felt like it was important to get the information out, but you would hate for you to get that information out and then people start looking at it with skepticism because of some dumb words coming from other people, saying dumb things that they don't understand.
And always with the accusations, the sensationalism. I got a message from Shannon LeGros. Now, it's funny because I was watching her on TV last night, but me and Shannon are friends. And she had sent me, I'm not going to get into a big, long whatever, but she had sent me this thing where this guy just sent her a nasty email, just lambasted her. And I'll never forget, I was with Ken and Ann and my wife. We were all at the our good friend Daniel Jones, Barton. Him and Ryan were at the UFO conference at the World, America's Mall, whatever, in San Antonio. So Daniel was speaking, and I was sitting there, and I got a message. It was that weekend, and I got a message from Shannon, and this guy just he wrote a book to her, just terrorizing her, talking mad crap. Called her a fringe, woo, and sensationalist, and all kinds of crap. And then at the end said, I'm going to put you in the same category with these nut jobs, Vic Cundiff and Josh Turner. Basically just saying that we're a bunch of lunatics that believe in this stuff and do whatever we do. This person, though, I could tell they're a Bigfoot researcher. I could tell. Because they want to believe that this thing is just a giant monkey running around out there. And I got friends who are apers, man, but at least they have some common sense and they don't go out and attack people like that guy did Shannon. That was ridiculous. That was absolutely ridiculous. And she showed me the correspondence, and I was just like, this is the kind of crap that people like her and me, you, all the people that we have to deal with. It's people like that who think that they're serious researchers because if you don't believe that these things can hurt you, if you don't believe that they can kill you, if you don't believe, because that's what they want. They want you to believe like they do, that these things won't do anything to you. The Dogman and Bigfoot, and first of all, some don't even believe Dogman exists. So the flesh and blood Dogman people need to stop because the apers don't accept you. First of all, okay, the ones that do believe that it's some sort of supernatural creature. Now, publicly, they may say, "Hey, I believe Bigfoot's a real thing." Whatever. Here's my belief. I do believe they're real. I believe both specimens, species, whatever, are real. But I think that there's more to them than what meets the eye. And I'm not just saying that because I have a transformer on my shirt. I'm telling you, There's something there that we don't understand. I don't think Claudia was just crazy, and then when she moved to Tennessee. But when she moved to Tennessee, one of the things that it talks about in the Hadith about the jinn, and this goes back to King Solomon. If you read the Song of Solomon, it says that these demons can travel around the world in a blink of an eye. Before you could lift, I believe it says you can lift a cup to your lips, they could be before you like that. Boom.
Right.
So how hard would it be for them to?
A week.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Yeah, she hadn't lived in Tennessee a week before the tree knocks started.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't take long for them to find you and begin to interact with you. So if you're already on their radar, and especially if you're in Tennessee, Kentucky area, which I think is a huge hotbed for these creatures. Same thing with Michigan and Wisconsin. Same thing for Texas, Oklahoma, and I'll throw in Louisiana and Arkansas. This 4-state area, full of these things, full of them. I mean, they're everywhere. I get reports from these states all the time, and then certain parts of New Mexico too. You get a ton of reports of these creatures. And people ask me all the time when they would correspond with me, what do they ask, Anthony, Tony? What are they?
Yep.
What are they? That's the big question. And then I'm always getting, hammered because supposedly I'm not a boots researcher, whatever. The thing is, I go out in the field a lot more than most people in this field, especially the ones that claim that they do and they really aren't. I just don't brag about it because I don't put myself in the same category with Nick Valenti and Barton. When you were here, Barton, I took you all over the woods, everywhere.
Sure, you sent me to numerous places, right?
Showed you everywhere they were at.
Just, yeah, exactly. I try not to pay attention to people like that, but concerning Claudia, I can give all your listeners my word on my honor that I never wrote a single thing down on those notes that I sent you that did not come out of Claudia's mouth, and Larry can back me up. Larry, he had a couple of really good emails that he sent me, and they were really important, right, Larry?
They were all from her heart, and I'm going back a little bit in time, but when Lance Hightower had told me that she had contacted him about the lawsuit that she was going to do against the state of California, because she said, my only concern, it was not about the money. It was never about money. She said, I want to protect people because I found out that there had been people that had disappeared down that same trail.
Right, the DNR told her that they had been attacked. Yeah, Boy Scout troop had been attacked on that same trail, and it was really bad attack. That's what prompted her to start the suit. Yeah, to help people.
But she had such a pure heart, and she wanted to help anybody. I remember when she asked me to introduce her to Tony Gallagher up in Ohio, and she was going to go stay with the preacher that studied with her and baptized her. But she told me that she changed, Claudia did, from being an atheist 10 years ago to being a devout Christian because of what she saw in the spiritual realm, knowing that there had to be a creator. And it was amazing that path took her to being a very devout Christian. So I just wanted to get that plug in there for what she had, what her heart was.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talked to her, and so did Kirk. He talked to her quite a bit, and Barton, you did. In the interviews I did with her, there were certain things that she didn't like at the beginning, that she was kind of like not going to talk about it yet. She was going to let and see what happens with it, how it developed. And ultimately, she told me a lot more, I believe, in the second interview. And then when you took over, and the folks, the reason I had to do this is because I'm writing 2 books. I had everybody helping me interview people. I know Tony, Anthony, y'all are probably glad that it's coming to a conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean, when we first started, I asked you, I was like, well, I really wanted to be able to read the book. And you were like, well, I need help, man. I need someone to help me with this. And then, like, you said, like, oh, I'm already getting Ken and Barton to help me. It's like, I'm going to need you guys to do it too. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. So we were all more than willing to.
It was
but
a huge undertaking.
It was still a lot. Even with the just a great amount of people you had behind you, it was still a lot of work that you put
It
in.
was a team effort. And I appreciate it with you guys, with Nellie, with Barton, with Ken. Constantly on the phone with everybody trying to do these interviews, everybody who gave me their stories. Over 70 people per book gave me stories for the book, but not everybody's story could make the cut. And that's, I hope you understand that. If not, and I'll tell it on the show, and maybe if I write another one or we write, a couple more, whatever. But the thing I had to do was pick the right stories. And Barton, you were instrumental in helping me go about that. And also I took advice from some other great people like Nick Redfern and David Weatherly. I owe credit. I acknowledged everybody. I wrote the acknowledgement the day before yesterday. And of course, Barton, you were an inspiration. That's why, I talk about you in the book. And folks, let me say something. Barton, to his credit, I'm going to say this. He didn't want me to put that in there. He said, I feel uncomfortable with you telling everybody. I said, dude, I wouldn't have gone down this road without you, Barton. I wouldn't even be here. I mean, and everything that you
I'm
and
happy
Ken
to have
and
inspired you. My honor.
Thank you, Barton.
yeah,
You're welcome.
everything that we've done. I mean, like, my Texas peeps, you guys and Lyle and Ken and David Weatherly. I mean, it's, and then you Kentuckians up there, you and Elijah, and. I had a brief conversation with Elijah Henderson from Cryptid Studies Institute. Now, he lost his dad. And one of the things he told me, he says, I'm going to put things on the shelf, but I'm going to take them down and I'm going to finish them. And he said, that's what my dad would want me to do. And I told him, I said, I've been doing that for years, putting things on the shelf. I'm going to finish it. And then I told him, I said, I'm just going to write, but I'm not going to do the podcast anymore. And he says, man, you do what you do. You're good at what you do. Why not do both? And then on the conversation I had on the way back, I was with Lyle, and he talked to me. I mean, he was like, and he's like, whatever you do, put everything you have into it. And that's what I tried to do. And so I got out all the list of all these different witnesses. I wanted the books to be mostly people from the community that were podcasters and authors and things like that, at least in this first one, mixed in with some other stories. But I wanted people who they knew that they could connect with. And you read that story and go, this is how that person got into this. And then you go and you watch and whatever. And we had sincerely hoped that Claudia would be, we didn't know this was unexpected. And that she would be around to celebrate her words being put into this book, and for her to be able to go around and do interviews and based on what she had told us. And I appreciate each and every one of the people that did give me the stories for the Dogman werewolf book and then the Bigfoot book. I made them the names, the werewolves and the Dogman phenomena. That's the name of the first book. Second book, it's already going to the publisher, so it's a done deal. But second book is the Bigfoot phenomena. And I think that the reason that I call it that is because it is a phenomenon. It's not as simple as just, well, I saw this creature up in the mountains or the woods and whatever, and there it was. When me and Barton, and Barton, I'm going to speak for you because I know this is true. We talk so much. I talk to you and Ken so much. I can talk. I can tell people. I'm going to tell them this, and I know you're going to agree with this. That's how close we are. But the third, I'd say the fourth or fifth interview we did in that series of interviews we did about Bigfoot for my podcast. What happened, Barton? It turned into alien abduction.
Sure, and not only that, but all manner of high strangeness were associated with these people. And I tell you what, you really picked some good subjects to present in this book, because I don't know how many, I haven't got to read the Dogman book, and I can't wait to do that, but these stories were so complex. I don't think there's more than 8 or 9 stories in the whole book, but they're like 20 pages each,
Mm-hmm.
and the notes were so extensive. And I tried not to leave out anything important. And I can tell you right now that one of the things that she said to Larry in a text, and Larry he can back me up on this, and we were talking about her health, and she said, "What I don't understand is why they hadn't killed me yet. Maybe they haven't, I just don't know it.
Yep.
Maybe that's the reason I'm having all these strokes and my health is deteriorating." Right, Larry?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
She
didn't blame him.
she knew when her problem started, and she said, that she would never stop rebuking them, but she said it seemed like every time she rebuked them, she would have problems, would end up in the
She
hospital.
would get sick.
And-
Get sicker. And she went out to rebuke them one night in the view of a whole research group. And she said she felt something happen to her, and all of a sudden she was 6 or 7 inches off the ground, levitating. Now, that's a pretty
Send me the
bold
picture.
claim, right? But she actually has a picture of that.
I have the picture.
So I have to conclude that despite what anyone
She was
says,
rubbed through the portal.
Claudia Ackley was mentally coherent and fully in charge of her faculties. When she talked to me, I know for sure, and I'm sure Larry feels
Yes.
the same, and Tony.
Yeah.
So yeah,
She would not-
anybody
she
that
would
says
not
that
talk
she was
if she
too
didn't
sick
feel
to do
good.
this. Right. Yeah, because I was going to interview her. I think it was on a Friday, and she had a headache and didn't feel that great. So I said, okay, we'll just make it tomorrow, and hope you feel better tomorrow. And that's when I actually got the interview. But yeah, she was in bad health. And Larry, you even warned me months ago, when we started talking about the people that was going to be in this book. You said, well, we need to get the interview with Claudia done because she could die any day, brother. And I was like, what? She's that bad? And you said, yeah, she's got all kinds of stuff wrong with her. Pacemaker had to be put in from her heart attacks, and she was on medication. And
Upper
half
GI,
the time she
lower
didn't have a
GI,
car.
everything.
You all right? Half the time she didn't have a car to escape these things, so she'd have got in her car and drove away. But most of the time she didn't have that option because she was left alone there, for days at a time, according to her. For days at a time, and she couldn't escape what was happening to her. She was all alone, and so her story is really one of the most, disturbing. One of the most disturbing stories. One of the most disturbing interviews that I ever conducted. So, but everything that's in there is 100% true, and it doesn't really matter what anyone says. If anyone wants to contest it, I can prove it in a court of law that those words were her own words, not mine, and that opinion was her own opinion and not mine.
That's correct.
Because I had no opinion when I talked to her. I had none. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know her. So,
and to back up what Josh said, about how much more he knew that he needed to get from after that first interview. She felt like, she said, I had so much more to say. And I told her, I said, well, Josh, immediately after y'all's interview said, I could interview her 3 or 4 more times. She has so much information. So this book will reveal a lot that we never got to hear, or a lot of people did not get to hear, but some of us did.
I want to say this, gentlemen.
Josh could use it all. There was so much more, but I could have wrote a whole book and of notes to send to Josh. Yeah. He could probably write a series of books just
reading the notes is like reading a book. I mean, it was like, but a lot of it jibed with what I had already had. But she gave you more than even my second interview with her. So I guess I did 2 and then 1 with you. But she gave us so much more because she decided to just lay it all out there. And that was the linchpin. And when I looked at this, and I told Ken, and I told you, Barton, and I told Larry, and I said, look, Kirk, you know, I can't this, if I come out with this, I write all this out there. People are going to be like, oh, he's adding to what she said because now she's passed. And when she passed, it was like, it first, it kind of took the wind out of my sails because then I'm going like, oh, God, okay, now how do you go about releasing this information because it's going to be controversial. I mean, and so, Barton, you have my back, and you said, you said, you know what, let's do a show, and then we decided to bring Larry on. My hair's over here just doing whatever it wants. I need a haircut, folks. But you said, let's do a show and let people know the truth. And I said, yeah. And so we had to figure out how we were going to put it together. But we didn't want to just jump on it right after she passed away because I thought it'd be in bad taste. And so look,
Right.
you know, we had to, but this had to come out. It had to be said. So if somebody says anything, I can refer to what episode is this? 137?
Yes, that's correct.
Livestream 137 on what is today? July 17th?
16th, I believe. 16th. Yep.
Or whatever. And I can say I can refer them to this. And Barton, we worked, lockstep together, you and I and Ken, on these books. And
Yes.
also, there were a lot of people did. There's too many people to name that were involved in the process. And I'm not ashamed to admit, dude, I'm not an author. I had to have people tell me, well, you know what, you probably shouldn't do this. You know what, you probably shouldn't do that. And David Weatherly, I was on the phone with him. I was on the phone with Lyle. And Nick Redfern, I just talked to Nick yesterday. Nick's doing the forward for, and very nice guys. Very nice people. It was like I was talking earlier about the Dogman triangle that Aaron Deese wrote. And somebody I don't know if they were trying to be snarky with me or what, but they're like, well, you weren't in that documentary. And I'm like, yeah, but a lot of my friends were. They didn't need me to bake that cake. They baked it just fine without me, and I don't feel the least bit slighted. I had a million things going on and probably wouldn't have been able to do it anyway. I got invited to go out and do the unexplained or whatever. I didn't have time to fly out there. I just did not. I don't have time for these things. I know that it would further my career and all this other stuff. But what I'm most interested in is getting the information to you. The people, the listeners, the audience, my paratroopers, my people. That's what I want. And so, yeah, maybe I do miss out on some of these other great things that go on or whatever. And not knocking any of them. I love the work that other people are doing. But we should start looking at this as a we thing instead of a me thing. Because if we could start doing that as a community, imagine where we would be. I think we would be out of this dark ages that we're being put into of monkey man, whatever. Yeah, that's there. There's something there. Yeah, it's physical, but there's something else happening too. And that tends to get overlooked. And the mainstream Bigfoot is being put into a category of an unknown species, and one day we're going to find it. Folks, it's been decades and decades, and we have not moved forward one iota. And those that try are stifled. And I'm going to say this. I like Jeff. I'm not going to say anything bad about Jeff Meldrum. I think he's a brilliant guy. I think he has done, I'll say this about him. He has stood up to academia and taken a huge amount of criticism that none of us could probably even fathom because of him saying, I believe these things are real. But by the same token, I know I like Melba Ketchum. I think that she's trying to get to the bottom of this stuff. And I'm going to put her on. And, I think that there's something that needs to be said. Hold on one second, Larry. There's something that needs to be said. And and I'll say it. I'm used to the heat. I'm used to the whatever. I'm used to the controversy. I didn't ask for it, okay? But I'm going to print this, and if people don't like it, that's just too bad. This is what this woman's words were. I have witnesses. We have text. We have pictures. We have all this. So if people want to challenge it and they want to fight, go ahead. Get mad. Gnash your teeth. But the truth is the truth, and it's going to defend itself. And that's why I wanted Barton to come on. Now, go ahead, Larry, what you were going to say.
Josh, I was going to say a couple things, but if you've had recent conversations with Melba, I mean, I do know that the reason, and I think you may remember the reason she told me that she was trying to stay in the background was after she was scheduled to speak at a Bigfoot conference. After she did the DNA, she was warned not to go, and she did not go, and a pipe bomb blew up at the podium that she was to be at. And I know that since you'll be pointing back to this 137 about, because it's detailing some stuff in, your books will detail so many things. I'm going to go ahead and tell just the real quick, because you won't be able to put it in this book, and maybe at some point you will be able to. But I had told both of y'all about my friend Victor, who was a Native American grandmother, grew up on the reservation, and his experience west of Gerald, whenever he has the date down, he has all the information, and he was going to call y'all up and tell his story about when it was raining. He was slowing down because it looked like there was a cow laying in the road, and then it stood up as he came to a complete stop, loaded down 80,000 pounds in the back of his rig, and it stood, and he's 10 foot up in the cab. It looked, the Dogman looked eye to eye with him and shoved the front of his cab so that the front of the cab actually slid, the tractor portion. And then it looked at him as if I could kill you if I wanted to. And it turned and walked away. And tears were rolling down his eyes as he was telling me the story. And so he was going to call y'all up, and he got a call out of the blue from who, or none of us know who, saying, you will not be talking about that. So anyway, I wanted that, for 137, for people to know, as an addendum to your Dogman.
Yeah, if you reference Joe Barger, he's one of the people, and he's one of me and Barton's friends, and he tells a story, and it's in the book. He goes into detail about it, and it's, there was a lot of things that happened to him after that. There was a lot more that I wanted to say in the Dogman book about my hometown and some things that went on back in the 60s and 70s that I just was warned in emails not to say. And I was given the advice from you, Barton, and from Ken, and from everybody I talked to, go ahead, put it in there, do it. But the problem is I have to live in this area, and I got family in that county, and I don't need the trouble. And none of us really can possibly fathom the pain and suffering and trouble that Claudia went through. We just don't know. We know what she told us, but to really be there and witness, having gone through what she went through. No, we don't. We didn't have to suffer what she did. But you will read it in the book. I'm not going to get into any more about what's in there. We could sit here all day and talk about this. But I do appreciate you guys coming on, gentlemen, and backing me up. If there's anything else you want to say, Larry or Barton, about this subject.
I'll say one last thing. I guess the book will have more information in it than because of her untimely passing, because Barton wanted to protect any information that was going to be used, because she was planning to go back to California to carry on her lawsuit. The lawsuit is dead now. There will be no lawsuit. So this information will be preserved in the books, and I appreciate all the work you and Barton have done.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being a supporter. Larry has been a great supporter of the show and a good friend. And you worked with me, too, for a bit. And you did a good job. We miss you.
I'll be back. I'll be
Well,
back.
I hope you do. I hope you come back and we work together again. Larry, thank you for coming on. Barton, is there anything
Thanks for
else you want to say in closing? Is Barton there?
Yeah, I'm here, brother. I just want to say that Claudia was a very kind woman, extremely friendly. And, you know, like I said, I didn't know her, but the first time I spoke to her on the phone, she talked to me like we'd known each other forever. And she should be remembered as someone that had the courage to stand up to the government, you know, to try to get these things officially recognized. And that she was dead set on going back to California and resuming the lawsuit. And I told her, I said, Claudia, I have to advise you against that. I said, take what money you have and take what time you have and enjoy yourself. You'll never win against the government. But she was, she was planning on going to do it. But she should be remembered as someone who really cared about other people and other people's safety, especially kids. And that's something very respectable. She should not be remembered as someone who was so sick that she was delusional or whatever. That's just not true.
Not true at all.
Yeah. You're right. Thank you for that, guys. Thank you for backing me up on that because we have it here on the record. I'm not the only one. I will probably have to stand alone at some point when the book comes out and people start going out, you know, whatever. My name is on the book.
It's all about the truth, brother. And, you know, the truth is worth it.
Yeah.
People need to know. They need to be prepared. And, you know, they don't like the truth, but when the truth finally comes out, there's usually a price to pay. So I hope nothing, you know, negative comes from the book. I know it's going to be sensational, and because most people didn't know what she was going through, the hell she was going through nightly in Tennessee, but she wanted everyone to know the truth, or she would never have called me and told me this stuff. So there it is for Claudia. There's the truth, believe it or not.
Yeah. All right, guys. Good night. I appreciate it. Thank you once again, Barton, Larry, for y'all's help and your contributions to the book and to the channel and to everything. And of course, Barton and Larry, I will talk to you guys again. We're friends.
Okay.
Amen.
Good night, Larry. Good night, Wolf, and good night, all you
Good night,
paratroopers out
Wolf.
there. Y'all stay safe.
Thank you, Barton. Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Barton.
All right.
All right,
You're
good
welcome. Good night.
Yeah, go ahead. So here's what we got, folks. Headache. Anytime you do something, there's going to be a headache.
I mean, you can't
I've
do
been
anything
going through
good.
this for, you know, the past week with it. With just this headache is a bunch of headaches. Gotta pray for me, please. Pray for me. That's all I can tell you. Just pray for us. Pray for us all. God help us. You know, I'm getting threats on emails, and I mean, you know, good thing I was a bad man who has a bad past.
You may call me Betty.
People say I do things that are not correct to do. And you know what I do? I do them anyway. You know, over here, people telling me, you know, oh, well, you know, you shouldn't do this, and you shouldn't do that, and you shouldn't talk about this, and you shouldn't talk about that. And don't ever get into a conflict with anyone. Just let them talk a bunch of crap. It'll go away when they're ready for it to go away. Or you can put on your big boy boots and go and take care of that problem. You know, you got to be tough. You got to have a tough skin. When people attacked me, I broke down and I cried. and they thought, oh, we got to him. Ooh, we gave him a gut punch. No. I cried because when you did it, my mom had just died. You think your meanie words, your hurtful words made me go cry? Is that what you think? You call me poo poo caca head and I got upset? Huh? What you think, fool? Huh?
All right, bugs.
Somebody told me the other day in an email, they're like, you're crazy. You're absolute lunatic. You're a loon.
What'd you do to Nelly this time?
I was like, I was like, Nelly, stop. Okay? Stop. In the name of love. Now, I said, you know what? I am crazy. I'm crazy for sitting here reading your stupid email to its completion. You're stupid. Why do I give a crap?
Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm just kind of getting sick of tired of like people trying to dictate how we do our show.
Mm-hmm.
It's starting to get annoying. Like, we're more than willing to listen to our listeners and like listen to our fans. And when they say something like, hey, we wish you could do, you know, a story about so-and-so, we'll be like, okay, yeah, Wolf will bring something up. But when they just straight up tell us like, oh, we want you to stop talking about this and tell more stories, or, oh, you know, we're tired of you disclosing your life too much. Like, we don't care. It's like, well, then don't listen. Don't watch.
Yeah, don't watch.
We're just so sick and tired of it. We're not going to change. I mean, I don't know how many times we have to tell you, this is how we do our show. I mean, I think we do a great job. And I think that there's plenty of people who agree with it.
So I got a story I wanted to tell you guys. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I got a story I want to tell you guys. And this is a Dogman, because usually on Sundays we talk about stories, but with Claudia's passing, I needed to address that. Plus, the books come out, and I want there to be a big shock. And, you know, Eddie Petch, no autopsy, no. Kind of weird, right? I think they're ruling it a heart attack, but how do you know? It's whatever. I put these up, and I thought, I can do this. No, I can't. And now I was asked by somebody too to stop doing such long live streams. If you folks in the chat want me to continue to do these long live streams and still do the hour podcast, let me know in the comments. Or do you want me to break it up and do shorter shows? Madeline says, what's the expected release date for the books? We're hoping that they won't be ready for sale on Amazon until after the conference.
But
we're going to take them to the conference, a bunch of them.
Madeline's going to be at the conference, so
Yeah.
she'll be able to get one.
And so those will be autographed. And then the autographed books, we aren't going to do giveaways with them. I've been told not to. So they will have to be sold. You know, I'm not trying to make money off of this. This isn't my, you know, whatever. Everybody that donates, it's all going toward the conference. I appreciate the donations. Thank you for that. And I appreciate, you know, and I appreciate everybody who's been forthcoming and helpful and kind. And you guys made my birthday on Friday good. Donations are not expected, but they are appreciated. It makes it worthwhile for us to be here. But you know, I guess, you know, I have a bunch of books from other people that I still have to give away and whatever, and those will continue after this conference is over with, and then, you know, we'll start the giveaways again or whatever. But I guess the books that I take to the conference that I don't sell, I'm going to sell and ship myself. And they're not that expensive. The book on Amazon, I think, is like $20. We're going to sell the autographed books for like $25. You get both. I was going to do a deal where you can get both for like $40 or something if you buy both, and then I could just ship them to you as long as you pay the shipping, because shipping has become astronomical. But, that's pretty much how we're going to do it. And, I'm going to just try to ship weekly so you can actually get an autographed copy. If I could just give them all away, that I would do that, but they cost me money. I have to pay for them. So, and then it takes a bunch of time for me to autograph them. Occasionally we'll do giveaways where we'll give some of those away too. But, it is what it is. I've been told to do that, and I'm listening to people who've done this before, okay? I'm not trying to, do my own thing. I was even told that I should sell them for more on Amazon, and I thought that's not correct, because if you go on Amazon, David Weatherly, Nick, Lyle Ken, all these authors, these great people have come before me. They're not selling those for more than $20. Now, I could see why Barton would sell Inhumanoids for more, even though I don't think it is, because that's a huge book. It's like 400 pages or something.
Yeah, that's like a book.
That's a thick book.
Mhm.
I try to keep mine around 40,000 words.
I think there's some Harry Potter books smaller than that one.
Yeah. And the Dogman book is going to be different than the Bigfoot book, because the Bigfoot book just went, I had so much to say about it because I've already done so much Dogman. It's like I put all of my ideas and opinions kind of like, out there, but also I just threw the facts out there from the stories that the people gave us. And that's all you can do. I mean,
What's cool though is that, based on what I understand, is that, like, even though they are individual books, they do tie into each other. And it's like, if you read both books, then you're increasing your knowledge on both subjects. It feels like, based on what you've kind of told me, some of the things I've heard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's like anything else. You're going to have people who like you and celebrate you, and you're going to have people who don't. My dad told me, if you're pleasing everybody, then you're a politician.
Mm-hmm. And you're pleasing nobody by that point.
I learned some things from my dad. Here, this came out of a town north. It's northeast of Mexico City called Pachuca. I don't know if you've heard of it. You can look it up, see what province that is. I don't know if it's in the same province as Mexico City, but I got this from a guy. And he used to live in Mexico City, but he became a security guard. Now, I had actually was kind of confused. I had looked up a story that I got out of Wichita, Kansas, and I was actually going over the story with Tony, Nellie, and Anthony, preparing for the show. And then I went back and I looked at my email, and I was like, dude, Wichita, Kansas is like a long ways from Pachuca, Mexico. So I kind of got confused. The stories are the opposites. But this one was pretty crazy. And then then at the last minute, I looked on there and I saw on those files, there's a couple of them.
Yeah, so Pachuca's on like the way outskirts of Mexico City.
Yes, Mexico City, yeah. And so this guy, and I couldn't remember if he said this was on the outskirts of Mexico City or if it happened in the city of Pachuca, which is kind of like a suburb. But what he told me was when he was a kid, his dad had a job, and they would go around to baseball and soccer fields, and they would cut the grass. And it was a pretty good business. It was him and his 4 brothers, and he had 2 sisters. He said they got to sit around at home. His name was Jorge, and he didn't have a problem with me saying his name, whatever. But I mean, I'll just give you his first name. But he said, look, he goes, when I was young, and I want to credit his cousin Felipe for giving me the information to talk to this guy. And so shout out to you, Felipe. Felipe's a resident. He lives down in the valley here in Texas. Nice guy. I've known him for years. But his cousin gave me this story. And he said that when he was young, Jorge said that him and his 3 brothers would go and work with his dad. His dad had a business cutting grass, like I said, but he had several contracts, and it was kind of a huge undertaking when he would do those as opposed to like a residential area. And he said that it was like that he would drop him off, and he would have to do like 3 ball fields, and then he would have his other sons, and they would have to move quickly, and they would be there by themselves for hours. And it was like a summer thing, and it was hot. It's very hot down there. And so he says, I had to go down there and do all the mowing and all that, and he goes, and then my dad would come and he'd pick us all up and we'd load everything onto the trailer, then we'd get up and we'd leave. And then he goes, and then the next day we go to another area and do the same thing. Somebody says, Mr. J, my wife and I met Josh up in Round Rock. Great guy. I love this show. Oh, thank you, Mr. J. And so what ends up happening is one day when Jorge was 16 years old, a young guy, a year older than me, when I saw what I saw, and he's like there in one of these soccer fields, and he was up in the bleachers, and he got hot laying there. He goes, dude, and I was like, he goes, I felt like something touched my shirt, like underneath me, and I thought, oh man, could be a spider or a scorpion or something. And he said sometimes when he would go and he would put a chair and sit up under the bleachers, but he would always see spiders and stuff, and he was like, I don't like spiders, so I didn't want to sit up under there because I'd see them. And so he said, dude, I'm laying on the bleachers. He says about 7:30 at night, I'd finished my whatever, and he had one brother who always lagged behind. He was the youngest, kind of the spoiled one, he thought, in his mind. And he said, dude, every time he was the one lagging behind, and his dad couldn't get on to him too much. He said he was a mama's boy. Mommy would always protect him, and so he goes, dude, so it ended up being, he's laying there on the bleachers, and he's like, his dad was not there to pick him up yet. But sometimes he would get picked up early, and then they would have to go pick up the last brother, and they always ended up having to help him finish. And some of these ball fields would have 3, 5, 6, 7, even 8 ball fields. They were big areas. And they would go around the whole town and do what they did, And he said, dude, something was wrong this day. This was middle of August. He goes, and it was hot. I mean, it was like, he goes, it was sweltering hot that day. It was like hotter than it usually was. And he said, and I'm directly in the sun. And so he goes, I roll over and I'm just like, I'm tired. I mowed the 3 and I weed eated it and all that, And I'm there, and he goes, and I'm cussing, I'm mad. I've been laying there for like an hour in the sun. Now I'm like, I guess I'm going to have to go and find some shade. And he's like, mad. He goes, I know my little brother's taking forever. That's why this is, that's why we haven't been picked up. He's by himself. No cell phone. Didn't have a cell phone. And it was like early 2000s. He didn't have a cell phone yet. He didn't get a cell phone until he was like 20. Which maybe that's the way it should be. I don't know. But he says he's laying on the bleachers and he rolls over after he felt something touch him. And he looks down and he's like, I'm looking at eyes. I'm staring at eyes. And he's like, I'm like trying to register and figure out, half asleep, what it is I'm looking at. And he said it was getting darker. He had finished at like 7:30, but it was already like almost 8:30. He's like, and it's getting darker. It's dusk. And I look down, and he goes, and what I see a hand, like a finger. And he's like, that doesn't belong to a person. It belongs to something, but it's not a human being. And he's like, I'm looking down and I see the eyes, and he says, I see them blink. And he's like, okay. And he's like, dude, I can't sit here and rationalize in my mind what it was that I was looking at, dude. He goes, I'm trying to make sense of it. I'm trying to rationalize it, and I can't. He's like, this thing had a canine-like head. He said, just like a wolf. He said, and I'm looking down at it, and I'm like, what in the heck am I? He's trying to make sense of it. And he said, this is the finger that it belonged to. He's like, this thing was touching me. poking me with a claw. He said, I jump up and I roll like 2 bleachers down. He's like, and I'm freaking out. And then I get a better look at it. And he goes, and then I jumped up and I stood up and I looked around. And here's where it gets even more weird. Jorge told me, he's like, look. And this thing is like 40 yards away. Within like a blink of an eye, it was across the field. By where the concessions would be. And he's there. He's by himself. And he's like, there's nobody around. Nobody. And he's like, dude, what am I supposed to do? He said, I stood there for what seemed like forever. I just stood there. He's like, all I had was my watch. I looked at my watch. He's like, I kept looking at the creature. It kept looking at me. He said it was about 6.5 feet tall, maybe 7. In between 6.5 and 7. And Yaholo says, no, it wasn't a squatch. He said, dude, it had a snout. He said the body wasn't what we talked about earlier. It was not skinny, but it wasn't had a huge head. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, how did you describe it earlier? You said it was like kind of like a bobblehead looking kind of.
Yeah, because he said it was like the head was too big for the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we were talking about this story earlier, and he says, dude, it was so unreal what I was looking at. He's like, and it just stood there. And he said it didn't open its mouth and pant like a dog. It didn't, he said, as hot as it was. He's like, dude, it wasn't growling or barking or doing, and it didn't do anything. It just stood there. He said, eventually I sat down on the bleachers and I just stared at it, and then it lowered its head and just looked at me. He said, and then he estimates about a half an hour went by. And then he hears a honk. And he turns and he looks, and it's his uncle. And he said, all I could think of was my little brother. Mi hermanos. And what he called him in Spanish, which was a bad word. You know, basically like calling somebody a baboso, but a lot worse. And he said, dude, I got off of those bleachers very quietly. And then he said he kept his uncle honked again. And this thing kind of got spooked and it got down, like it was squatted down. And he said then he saw like the arms kind of go forward like it wanted to do something. And he was waving at his uncle like, stop, please stop. And then his uncle's like, you know, what's wrong? ¿Qué tienes? He gets out of the truck. Ándale, you know, what's up? Ándale, pendejo. What are you doing? And he's like, shut up. Finally, he was like, cállate la boca, pendejo, you know? And his uncle looks over and he points. His uncle looks over, sees what he's pointing at. And then he's like backing up, goes and gets in the truck, and then he thinks he's going to leave me. So then he got around the bleachers, which put him within about 20 yards of this creature. And then he ran to the vehicle. As soon as he did, that thing launched off, just took off running after him. The fence was locked. He didn't have time to sit there and mess with it. He climbed up it and was over it, and he fell. Boom. He said, I look up, and this thing is right there on the fence. Terrifying. Horrific encounter. He said it smelled like blood and urine and rotting garbage all mixed together. He said the thing like literally opened its mouth and like pulled on the fence like it was, you know, and then stopped and backed up. And he's like, at any minute, this thing's going to jump over the fence. He's like, dude, I rolled to the truck and I jumped in the back. I didn't even have time to open the door. And his uncle, they got the heck out of there, and it was right at dark. So he tells his dad, he says, you know, Dad, me and Theo, we saw this thing. And his dad says, hey, mentiras, you know. You know, it's whatever, man. Something in your sesos, you made that up, you know, whatever. I said, no. We saw it. And his dad's younger brother was like, yeah, I saw it. And he says, well, let's go back over there and look. And his older brother was like, no, don't do that. He said the whole time he was telling it, his two younger brothers just kind of like, But his older brother, Felix, he kept looking at him like you know, he's like, dude, he had this look on his face, like very intently he was listening. After dinner, he goes up. His dad takes him, his older brother takes his dad and him out to the back porch. He says, look, I'm going to go back over there and I'm going to look to see if we can see anything. And he's like, don't do it. And he says, don't tell your mother, because I don't want her worrying. I don't want her to be scared. The older brother says, look, I'm going to tell you this. He goes, it's real. They had a family friend that helped them work the summer before. And he's like, you remember Miguel was helping us last year? And then he decided he didn't want to help this year. And he said, yeah. He's like, okay. Well, it's not like he wants to go make mangonadas or whatever it was he decided he was going to do that summer. He said, look, we saw something like this. About a mile from there, there's another set of fields. He's like, and we were cutting those fields. And he's like, we saw something come up out of the grass. Those people hadn't cut their grass in quite a while, and it was overgrown. And he said, and I'm on the riding lawnmower. I see this thing pop up and take off running on two legs. He said, why didn't you tell me this? He goes, because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have just thought I was trying to get out of work. And at that point, Jorge was like, you know, I remember my brother saying something like that to me in passing, and for me to be careful. And I just thought it was, you know, I talked to somebody yesterday on the phone. And I don't always interview people on the phone, you know, probably 30, 40% of the people. But I got on the phone with this individual, and he told me a story very similar to that. That's how I ended up finding that one, going back and looking. When he told me, he said, dude, one of my cousins, her husband told me in an area that I was doing security at, that I needed to be very careful because I was up in Wichita, Kansas. And he's like, you need to be very careful doing security there. It was a garbage place where the trucks come and go, whatever. He said this was back in 1990. I think he said 96 or 97. Or he said he worked there 96, 97, but he had a security job. And there was a place where they had trucks and things like that. And he was out doing his rounds, and he goes, the gates are locked. You're the only one there all night long. He's like, and I was told by my cousin's husband, my first cousin's husband. He goes, our moms are sisters. And he says, you need to be real careful. He goes, a few years ago, I saw something over there that looked like a wolf, like a werewolf or something. It was weird. And so he didn't even bother heeding this at all. In fact, he was licensed to carry a gun. He didn't even take it to work with him. He was running late. He was like, oh, well. He's like, I get out there. I go out to do my rounds. He goes, I come around the corner of one of the trucks, and I see this thing underneath the truck, and I hear crunching. I don't know what it is. And I see just one leg kind of like sticking out, and he's like, what am I looking at here? He's like, I don't know what I'm looking at. It looked like a dog-like leg, but not totally. And it was too long. It looked like a human leg mixed with a dog leg. And he says, and I go and I look under the truck, and I took my flashlight. He goes, so at least you remember that. He shines the light, and this thing turns and looks at him. It's just chewing. And he said what it looked like it was eating was a dead possum. He said it began to scramble out from underneath the truck. And he was like, dude. At that moment, he goes, all I could think about was getting back to my vehicle because I would have had to gone to the gate and unlocked it. Now, I've been in this situation before. And I didn't have a dogman come up and do that, but you guys, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they put us in places out in the middle of nowhere behind a locked fence.
Sometimes you're either trying to get in or way out through that fence, and it's always a hassle.
I remember specifically that lumber yard that we worked at. There was no light out there.
Oh, my gosh. I hated that place.
Yeah, it was just pitch black, dark, and it was just you. It was a creepy looking place. But thankfully, the worst things out there were a bunch of raccoons.
Yeah.
At least that we know of.
You remember Reba saying that when he turned the light on and there was like 30 of them around him?
Yeah.
He fed one.
Yeah.
That's always an issue. You can't do that.
Let's not go off into that tangent.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask that first story. You said that the first son saw the incident like towards dark. I was going to ask that second, the older brother, when did he see that? Because you said he was on the.
Done.
Okay.
They tie together.
Okay.
Just like the Dogman book and the Bigfoot book. You'll see. I'm going to bring it home. See, anybody can retell a story. You know, it's how the timing, everything. I believe it's an art. I don't know that I'm an artist. I don't call myself that. Just like I don't call myself boots on the ground because I go to locations and look for these things. I don't go around saying that I'm a plumber when I fix my toilet. But I do know how to tell a story. And that's why people give me their stories. This individual, Clay, he says, look, my cousin's husband told me, be careful out there. He says, while I have tears, this is not a little guy. He's not a small dude. He's 6'4", anyway, like 285 pounds. That's a solid dude. He was a weightlifter. He took karate. In fact, he had taken Kempo for years, which is something I took years ago. Very rapid hand strikes, pressure points. It's a good martial arts. Me and him hit it off, He tells me, hot tears flowing down my face. It was a nice, cool fall night. He goes, and I could feel the heat on my face from my own tears. He's like, and I'm thinking, yeah, I got to get back into my truck. He did. And this thing came right up to the truck, and then it stopped. And it began to walk, and its arms were at its side. There again, it wasn't a huge creature. It was about 6 foot tall. He wasn't bigger than a man. Weird looking. He said it was weird. It was gray. You could see it in the light. And it walked over to him and had blood on its mouth. And he's like, what am I looking at? What are you? He's like, he remembers thinking that. The thing literally spoke to him. Not with its mouth, not opening its mouth and saying something. But when he said, what are you? The thing told him death. He's like, I'll never forget it as long as he goes, I never have passed out or fainted in my life. He said, but at that moment, he's like, I felt all the blood had just drained down into the body, down into my feet, and then I was about to just fall over on the horn of my truck. Miguel, we actually talked about that, I think, last week. The lady on the plane. Wasn't it last week?
Oh, yeah, we did.
When this thing told him that, he didn't know what to do. No. He says, I started my truck. He didn't have one of those situations where the truck didn't start or whatever. No, it started right up. He said, and I didn't think anything other than to get the heck out of there. So this is what he did. I'm not laughing at this guy's predicament. I'm laughing at the decision he made because I think that people have a tendency to think that things work like they do in the movies. Well, they don't. Not always. Sometimes art imitates life and vice versa. He guns it into the fence. Now, we have a guard that did this. Yeah. I know he says an accident. You already know. Pretty sure he was just half asleep and did it. Mm-hmm. But all it did was what? Tear the fence down. He guns it. The fence doesn't go boom like dun 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 dun. If anybody doesn't know, it's
flying
ATM.
42 pieces.
A-team, yeah. Everything flies in 2 pieces. The chain magically doesn't hit your windshield. Everything works out perfectly.
The truck comes out better.
That is not what happened. It's the fence. It folds inward, goes through his windshield, partly through his windshield. He has to duck to keep from being, and he looks and the creature's gone. So then he just sits there, laying down in the inside of his truck. The gate's completely smashed and torn apart, but it's not, So just to make sure, he decides to hit the gas to see what would happen. Eventually, it started to tear out the insides of his truck, and then it falls off, and then he's out into the, with no windshield. Folks, I wouldn't suggest doing this, okay? Totally tore up his truck. The chain didn't even break. Just 2 pieces of whatever, it's like... And the crazy thing was the chain, what he figured out the next day when he went back over there, or not that next day, but later on that night or whatever, he went back over there with a friend and a police officer. Cop picks up the chain and says, "Oh, it's not even broken," and the lock was open. Then he thought, "Oh my gosh, I dummied the lock." I mean, it was that simple. But he had, literally, when he hit it, it kind of locked up and, Here's the thing. Yeah, Gil, you're exactly right. You got to love when the plan just comes together like that. Or doesn't. These 2 cases are very similar. He doesn't know what happened to the creature. They went back, they looked around, they saw paw prints, footprints, whatever. Got pictures of them, but I mean, in today's world, what can you do with those? Here's the thing. The police officer was just like, okay, so you got spooked. You saw a coyote. He says, I didn't see a coyote. I saw something. It was, I don't know, like a werewolf or something. He goes, you saw a coyote? And he's like, look, you saw a coyote eating a possum. That's all you saw. And he's like, okay, fine. Needless to say, the company was not happy that he decided to ram his truck into their fence, and his company that he worked for had to pay for it. Luckily, he'd been with them for a while, and they weren't going to fire him. It is what it is. Good night, Jimmy. And so, these stories are very similar in the way that what happened to Jorge down in Mexico, very similar to what happened to this guy up here in the States. They were both warned in passing, and they just kind of took it as like, yeah, whatever. He said when his brother's friend told him, he's like, it was like in one ear and out the other. He's like, I don't know. You saw a chupacabra, something, whatever. Because that's what they described it as. It's a very catch-all term down in Latin America. That's what I'm I've learned over the years. But he said, next time somebody tells me something is the way it is to, whatever, he goes, I'm going to take it into consideration. And I remember both these gentlemen telling me that they're not going to take things for granted anymore. Next time something happens.
Warnings are meant to be heeded.
Yep. So if something happens to you, folks, I would strongly suggest telling people that you care about. I know you don't want to sound crazy. But, you should tell somebody. Because there's going to be people who are going to go out. And they're going to do things. And they're going to end up in a bad situation. And at least you have that behind you that you try to tell them. Yeah. I got another one for you. This one happened in the south side of San Antonio. And by all means, these aren't the only stories we got of people having run-ins and issues with these creatures that when they're, when I went down there, I actually looked in on a couple that I had put away 2-3 years ago, and it said ballpark encounters. I was like, what is that? And I just went there because last night I was, let me ask you, Anthony, you probably know. Tony, you went to work last night. How long was I in the office yesterday? Most of the day, half of the night? I don't know.
You were there when I left.
Several hours. I mean, I don't know. I just know that when I first came downstairs, you were in the office, and then I went back upstairs, and then I came back down like several hours later, thinking like that. Oh, surely he's gonna be gone in his bedroom, and you were still in the office, like talking to people and doing something on the computer.
Working.
Yeah.
I think I was there for about probably 9-10 hours altogether, off and on. That's a typical weekend. I mean, you got to do stuff. You got things you got to do. Most of it was show related. So one file leads to another, right? And so I started going down, looking through the files, and I thought, this is an interesting story. I remember this one. Got to connect the dots. Got to go down the hole and see where it takes you. This one was in South San Antonio. Kind of goes along with the theme of tonight of, if something happens, you should tell somebody. Don't just keep it to yourself. And don't let people bully you. See, that was the problem. Claudia was a strong person until the day she died. She didn't let people silence her. She had people very close to her telling her, oh, you're crazy. Let all this go. Let's just pretend, that it doesn't happen. That it didn't happen. There's people out there that need someone to encourage them. I'm here to tell you, it feels a lot better to talk about it. In 1990, when I had my experience, I got made fun of. I got into fights. Oh, there were fights. Calling me wolf boy. Making fun, teasing. People you thought were your friends. Poking fun at you. But I never backed down. I said, look, I saw what I saw. I know what I saw. I'm not crazy. Make fun. Go ahead. Until it happens to you, then it's not so funny anymore, is it? These are prime examples of people who did not heed warnings. They were told these things are real. And if he would have thought, the guy up here in the States, if Clay would have just said, hey, maybe I should take my weapon. Maybe I should have went back. Would have paid off, maybe. I would have felt a lot more comfortable. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. We get reports of them getting shot and they react like normal things. And then other times it's like, what would you describe it as? Dust or what?
Sand, like Hellboy.
Vapor.
Like vapor,
What is-
black. Some people describe it as like almost like gunpowder coming off of them.
Yeah.
It looks like black sand. But if all else fails, you got to do everything inhumanly possible to survive.
Well, you do get those stories too, where they recognize firearms and they seem to be wary of them. So that could have happened too, and it might have saved him his windshield.
Mm-hmm. And almost getting decapitated.
Yeah.
And then you go back down to Jorge, Pachuca, Mexico. So when you look at what happened to him, his brother told him, he said, look, mi hermanos, I told you. And you said, oh, yeah, it's crazy. And you just walked off and kept eating your elote. Just
It's understandable.
understandable. For those that don't know what elote is, tell them what elote is, Anthony.
Elota is just a Spanish word for corn, and but it typically refers to like if you ever go to a flea market and had like a corn on the cob, or sometimes it's served in a cup, but with like chili powder, mayonnaise, and just like a bunch of different
Parmesan.
yeah, Parmesan. It's really good. It's
so
a
good.
popular Mexican snack. But yeah.
You go to the pulga, they always have it there.
Oh yeah.
As soon as you walk in, they're like trying to run up and smack you with it.
Go to any.
Yeah, I
fact-
fell in love with elote and turkey legs at that.
On 290.
Yeah, at that flea market on
290,
290.
yeah.
We used to go there all the time when I was a kid.
Well, that guy Frank that has the knife short Austin knives. He used to work at the pulga out there.
Yeah.
I went in there and you hear whoosh, everybody's like smacking whips and all kinds of cool stuff.
What does
there.
pulga mean? Or what?
Oh, it's like basically the market.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the pulga I think just means a flea.
Oh,
But,
Yeah.
but if you just say I'm going to the pulga, it means you're going to
It means
the
you're
flea
going
market.
to the market. It's
yeah.
like a slang term.
Yeah.
Because market is mercado.
yeah, because
Like we say pulga, like, because that's, you're going to go to, what I mean, because
I thought it was like a restaurant or something.
Mercado pulga is just, it's so stupid, dude.
Because I told Anthony, like, when I grew up and I went to Denver, there was always a Mexican man, like, with an ice cream cart, and he would always have a lote in his thing.
Dude, I was going
It was
to
the
Yeah,
greatest
everybody
thing.
had that one Mexican old man.
That's one of the stories me and Scorpion had talked about the other day, because there was a story of a woman that did brujeria on this guy who used to sell in his neighbor. This guy, I don't know if Scorpion's in the chat, I don't know if he remembers this, but one of his homeboys from back in the day, I guess they were in sort of a gang together. Scorpion, I know if you remember this, but your friend had told us a story of a guy who was selling drugs out of a.
He's a pharmaceutical.
He was a
street salesman.
pharmaceutical. Yeah, he was an entrepreneur who used those little ice cream trucks. But then somebody did brujeria on him, and he opened up the top of it. Somebody went in there to grab ice cream, and a snake bit him.
Oh,
Yeah, because a bruja had put a patrica on him, like basically a curse, and so he went in there and, yeah. Somebody said it's cojita cheese, not pork. Well, Dub 45, one of our friends, isn't it? Doesn't Brian? He uses Parmesan.
Yeah, I mean, you can use both, but yeah, the cojita cheese is common too.
Yeah, you can either one cojita or the Parmesan, but a lot of times it depends on your audience and where he's at. A lot of the people are Julios, and there's not as many Mexicanos, and so they use Parmesan over there. It's Brian from Mango Feliz. He's supposed to come on the show eventually. Brian, God, what's his last name? Really great place. Go check it out. It's good food, man. It's called Mango Feliz. It's a food truck, but it's like one of the best in Austin, and I kid you not.
speaking of other places in Austin, a place we went to yesterday was really good.
Oh, yeah.
Little Mexico.
Yeah. Because they serve things like fideo and rosca pollo and things like that you ate when you were a kid that you don't get in Tex-Mex restaurants. Tex-Mex is good, but it's not always like you don't get like the same whatever.
It's for me. It feels like restaurant food and then home food, and it just was
Yeah.
like that. That food felt like home food. You could tell.
Yeah. See, and Aldo says the cheese used in elotes we call cojita. Yeah, but the
I've had it with both, and I think they're both great. But I mean,
there's two different things, but you can get it, and then you can get it with salamon. Some people put salamon on there.
Yeah.
And some people they like it with lime and chile. I don't really eat that stuff because it's got that salt in it, and I can't do that. But anyway, y'all are making me hungry for you. So anyway, moving on. The story that I was going to tell, and it was not the story about. He says the Parmesan is more fancy. It's chicante. You got the pinky up. I'm like, oh, all right. I like this plateau. This is a great plateau of enchiladas. Sonia Keese, we have your box. It got returned. I just saw you right now pop up. It's right here. We need the address correct.
yeah, it was sent back to us. Also, Gary mentioned for that story, she cursed him because her nephew almost died from the special items that weren't on the menu. So I guess that makes sense.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he just texted.
Well, yeah, because something had happened and he was selling drugs, and I heard that story in passing from his friend who was downtown, and he was like, "I hear you collect crazy stories." And Sonia, make sure that you send us your corrected address so that we can try to get that to you. This box is sitting here, and it ain't doing me no good. But I'll tell you another one. This was in South San Antonio, and it's kind of funny we were talking about brujeria because it involves that. This guy, his great uncle for years, which would have been his mother's uncle, and they were pretty close, and he lived with them. And the guy that gave us this story goes by Sam, and it's a pretty crazy story. He worked for years as a groundskeeper, his great uncle. And so one summer, his great uncle gave him a job. He says, "Mijo, you want trabajo? Come with me, whatever." And he says, "Yeah, I need to make some feria." So he gets in the truck with him and goes out there and did not really anticipate how hard of a job his uncle had. His uncle was a groundskeeper / undertaker. Did both. So at that time, he said, this was back in the late 80s. He said, we had to dig with the shovels, He's like, and he goes, there were two of us. And he said, my great uncle liked to imbibe typically by the end of his shift.
I mean, if you've been digging all day, I can understand.
He was, he was the jefe, he was the boss, right? And so, he would tell them, this is what you need to do. And, he said, I was respectful, he was the patron. I said, okay, whatever. And he goes and he starts digging. And his uncle would come up to him, and by the end of like I said, he was borracho tereso, like he's thrown off, He comes up to him and he says, look, borracho means drunk in Spanish. He says, look, he's like, this hole's not going to dig itself. You got to dig faster. We got to go. And he says, man, we've been here digging this hole all day. Are you going to help? He's like, man, I'm cutting the grass. I'm doing all this other stuff. I hired you guys to do this job. So they decided, the uncle went and sat in the truck. Light bulb goes off, him and his friend. It was his friend. He got the job. And he said, you know what? It's hot. It's summertime. It's July. Let's just throw the shovels in the ground. Let's go tell him mentiras, and let's make up a lie and tell him, hey, everything's fine. We dug it. It's only about 4 foot. And he goes, we'll come back later on tonight, and we'll finish it when it's cool. And his friend says, yeah, that's a great idea. Of course, this is a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, and they come up with the best ideas. I know I did at that age. I was an amazing thinker. I thought all the way to the freaking you know.
Well, the best
juvenile
philosophers
facilities.
are that age.
Yeah, you're always good at philosophizing at that age too. Miguel says, why we are talking about food, would you want to read my story? Send me your story, Miguel. Or I can call you and you can just tell your story right now on the show. If you think that you can do it and if you think that it's show worthy. And so they decide that they're going to lie to the uncle. He's drunk anyway. Luckily, they didn't have a long drive to go from the cemetery. He walks over to the truck and he says, "Are you done?" He says, "Yeah, we're done." He goes, "Hey, get in, whatever." They get in, drive a few blocks down the road, whatever, drops them off. Honks, says, hey to their mother, his niece, and then he drives home. Did this for years, drank himself for like 15 years and never got pulled over. He didn't get on a highway or anything. He didn't have to go very far. It is illegal to drink and drive, folks, and I don't condone it one bit, and I think it's wrong. This man has passed away, been gone for a long time, so anyways, they go home. A couple of hours go by. He tells his mother what he did. He said, "Look, I lied to Theo. I told him that, that we were done. It was hot. It's the first day there, and he's digging a freaking grave." And he says, "I'm going to go back down there with Marco, my friend. We're going to finish." And his mom says, "Okay, I'll give you a ride." She drives him over there, and she's, "Okay, mijo." He's like, when you're done, just walk home. Whatever. It's not that far. His friend and him get out. They go into the cemetery. They go to dig. As they're walking, they're talking and they're talking about the weekend, what they're going to do. They had some friend that was going to be coming by, and they were going to go and hang out at some place by the river. They were going to go tubing or something. He was telling me. And he says, and then we see dirt flying up out of the grave. And he's like, then it hit me. He's like, my uncle told me to never be there at night. He's like, it totally just like went over my head. He goes, I don't remember. He goes, what did Theo tell me about being here at night? What was it he said? He couldn't remember. And then he remembers his uncle saying, I don't like to be there at night. I want to be done before dark. I don't want to be down there doing anything there, anywhere near the dark. Thank you for that donation, Michelle Collins. She says, hey, hi all. Sorry I'm late. I'll rewatch from the beginning later tonight so I can get up to speed. Sure. And welcome. And thank you for everybody who's donated. Greatly appreciated. Goes toward the conference right now. Ken was up there at the conference center scouting it out yesterday, right?
Yep.
Sent us some beautiful pictures. What do you guys think of the conference?
It seems exciting. I mean,
yeah, it's going to be a really, really cool place.
he was pretty excited going through it. He had, I don't think he had any complaints. I think he said the kitchen was a little small, but besides that, it seemed like a great place.
I saw something on the mic there. Yeah, he said other than that, I'm going to have to talk to my caterer, but other than that, it should be nice. Nice place, big, huge facility. We'll talk about your deal in a minute here, Miguel. So his buddy Marco says there's something in that grave. And then he's like, wait a minute. He's like, the shovels are not in the dirt. They're laying out on the side. He goes, we threw them down into the dirt. And so
There's some.
I don't know if that's I killed a spider earlier. Like there's, I hate that there's spiders everywhere right now. No, don't do that. It'll blind me. Sorry, folks. It looked like I thought there was something on my mic here. I'm not tripping because I killed a small spider just a minute ago, like earlier. Looking around, dude. I don't like spiders either. But he said that they were convinced that there was somebody down in this grave. And he says, and then he says, as we're standing there, he goes, we're horrified. We see this hand come up onto the grave. Like, on the top of it. And he said, dude, it looks so weird. We had flashlights. We shined them on there. And when he says, when we shined it on the hand kind of went up like this and then sunk back down. He says, dude, it was a clawed hand. Now, we have a story that we were all told as children in the Latino community, in particular the Mexicanos, called Manos Peludos. The story is about it's called the hairy hand. And it is a very creepy story. And it's ingrained in a lot of young Mexican children's minds. There's a moral to it, a moral objective to it. It's about listening. That's literally what it's about. It's about doing what you're told, doing the right thing, paying attention. I'm not going to get into the whole story of Manos Peludos right now, but there's a story about it. So what ended up happening, he goes, we see this, and it looked like a grayish colored hand. And his friend thought, what is that, a zombie? And he goes, I don't know, man. He goes, there were nails, long clawed nails on this. And what's crazy is that right after that, two hands come up, left and right. And what they thought was a zombie or maybe somebody with some really uncut, nasty nails, a head pops up. And what they're looking at blew their minds. It shocked them to their core. They had never seen anything like this before. There before them was this smoky gray colored wolf's head. And when it saw them, he's like, it was moving its head trying to get out of the light. It just jumped right up out of the hole. He said it stood there and its legs were bent. It was kind of squatted down. And he said the way it moved was almost like it hopped. I've heard this many times. Almost like a kangaroo. He said, we started running in two different directions. He's like, I ran and hid behind a really big, pillar, and he said, and then my friend ran behind a tombstone. And we were both looking at each other and we were like, what is this? We don't know. What is this thing? We don't know. And he said that they don't know where this thing went. They just heard like a sniffing around, sort of a grunting noise. And they didn't know what it was or where it was. So he's looking over at his friends. His friends are looking at him. And they're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And he's like, just then, he goes, I see. He goes, I have my flashlight. He's like, and I heard a noise to the right of me. He says, and I used the flashlight and I look, and he goes, and I saw the foot. Looked like a weird paw. When this thing moved, he saw the second foot. And he's like, and then he goes, dude, I thought I was going to throw up. He goes, this was the 7 foot tall, canid, upright creature. Now, he asked me, he's like, have you ever heard of them being in cemeteries? This guy, he's a listener of the show now, but when he told me this story, he wasn't. He was referred by somebody. I said, yeah. They like to be in cemeteries. He asked me why I thought that was. I said, I could give you a bunch of theories, but I can't tell you 100%. Very weird that they do what they do. He said, do you think this thing would have killed me? I said, probably, because I'd believe that. Some people will argue all day long that these things won't hurt you. What this thing did, though, showed an aggressiveness and a willingness to attack. His friend, who was there staying the night with him, and they were going to work for the few days or whatever. They were going to work till I think it was Tuesday. He said they were going to work until Friday. His friend had his backpack on him. He did something very ballsy and probably pretty smart. He threw the backpack. And this thing pounced on it and just bit it and began to tear into it. And while it was doing that, they ran. They made a break for it, and they got out. And luckily, they had not locked the gate behind them. They had not closed everything. And so they were able to take off running. They look back. This thing is now, like, it turned the corner so fast that it kind of slid and just kept running toward them, behind them, on two legs and then down on all fours. When they got down the road to a house, they took off between a fence that was like, there was like a chain link fence, the way he described it, with a bunch of trees, and then there was a house. What is Miguel saying there? Maybe I'm in the wrong channel, but I love PRT. No, you're not in the wrong channel. They ran in between that house, and they heard the dogs barking. They looked back as they were about to turn the corner and go into the alley, and there was this creature right there behind them. They hear dogs barking all over the place, and then they're running down the alley. Well, eventually they made it to their backyard, ran in, went through the backyard and into the house, screaming and yelling, banging on the door. Mother answers the door. There's this thing after us. It looks like a freaking werewolf. It's crazy. It attacked my backpack and blah, blah, blah. And she was just like, calm down, slow down, whatever. She calls her uncle. No answer. He's asleep. Been drinking. Next day, she calls him again. She said that her son, who's the oldest son of her kids, won't be going back to the cemetery. And he says, what happened? She says, well, things got out of hand last night. He goes, last night? What were they doing there at night? And she told him what they did. And he was like, well, that was a very stupid thing to do. He's like, I won't set foot in that cemetery at night. She's like, why not? He says, because there's a visitor that likes to hang out there at night. It likes to go and dig. He's like, I don't know why it does what it does, but it's there. He goes, and I've seen it. Looks just like a freaking werewolf. And she's like, why haven't you ever told me about this? He goes, would you have listened? He's like, and I told your son, my great nephew, I told him, I don't hang out here at night. When he asked me why, I told him. He didn't listen. So there's that story. He said he never went back. But over the years, when he would drive by there to go visit his mother, his dad had passed away. He had died. He had cancer, unfortunately. He's like, dude, I would see that cemetery, and I always thought a werewolf chased me there one time. I know where it's at, he told me, but I don't want you guys running over there because people will do that. I have a contact down in San Antonio, and he has visited that cemetery and went there at night. Had an encounter with something. He wasn't 100% sure. He didn't get a good look at it, but it definitely made its presence felt, and he ran. He didn't like run like, gee, Scoob, but him and his girlfriend got the heck out of there. His girlfriend's friend almost got left behind. Did y'all hear that?
Yeah, I don't know what that was.
Does it come from your end? I thought it was.
Yeah, it came from down there, but like below us or
Yeah.
something.
Cooper
Well, you
Young
check the
says.
tribe.
Yeah. Cooper Young says, why didn't he just hire the visitor to dig for him? It seems like a lucrative business opportunity.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't seem like it was willing to talk, if I had to guess.
Anyways, Miguel, if you have a Facebook, I could just call you on Messenger. You can tell your story if you feel like it's a story.
Or if you'd rather just me read what you put earlier, I could do that as well.
Well, it's very quick, but I mean, if it's something he wants to tell on the show, I'm willing to let him come on.
I know it'd be something that you could never tell anybody, but I always feel like in these situations, like the moment you lose sight of it, whatever creature you're encountering is like the scariest moment. So like I would say like keep an eye on it so you know exactly what it's doing as you're escaping, but it's like who would want to keep looking at this thing no matter which one you're talking about?
Yeah. Moral to the story, though.
Warnings are meant to be heeded.
Warnings are meant to be heeded.
Yeah.
I just told you 3 stories, and they're all based on people being told absolutely don't do this. And people do it.
Miguel says just read it, please.
Okay, you can read it. Go ahead.
Let me see if I can find it. Give me a second, Miguel.
It's burn. I'm going to take a little break from my eyes. You can read it.
Okay. Josh, so one time I was driving to Pyramid Lake when I saw a skinwalker. It looked like a deer walking on 2 feet, standing up, walking across the highway. It looked at me and walked away. Thoughts, please.
Well, I think that if it was on 2 legs and it was a deer, then you probably did see something like that. What happened?
The truck's fine. I mean, there's somebody in the office that's like 2 offices over and who wasn't there before, but that's the only thing I can think of that made noise. Maybe she was opening the door really loud. I don't know.
That's weird because it sounded like it was right below us.
Yeah, the sound was
Yeah.
coming from down there.
Yeah, from right down here.
Yeah.
But let me tell you what happened to me here, folks. I did a show, and I've told a few people. I don't know if I've ever told this whole story, but I'll tell it to you right now. Do you guys remember the Brazilian exorcist? I don't know if you remember that. But I actually did a show, and I had my friend Rodrigo, a jiu-jitsu guy, and really good guy. And he speaks Portuguese. And I asked him, I said, can you do me a favor? Rodrigo, can you translate? I don't speak Portuguese. Okay. And so he did. And I was up here late at night by myself for like 2 or 3 nights in a row. Shortly after that, the ladies that used to be next door to us, they had a what was it they had? Like eyelashes and nails and all kind of, it was like for women. I don't know what it was. It was something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were Vietnamese. And one of them was, she was African-American and she worked for them. She was like the receptionist or whatever. And I would talk to her sometimes. And lash extensions, yeah, they did that. And there was some other stuff they did too. They had like a salon, whatever. I'm not trying to be like whatever. I don't know what they do. I don't do stuff for my face or anything. Like my wife has bought me these things to help my face look younger, whatever. I don't take a lick of it. I just don't. I mean, I'm not, I don't use makeup. I don't know. But anyway, they're very nice ladies. And the one girl, she was outside on her phone. And when I was walking by, she was going like, yeah, it's just like really weird. It's been weird around here. And I just started to walk in. Well, I come into my office / studio because I have my office here for my job. And then I had my studio here. But then I have a study that I sit at home and I do a lot of research and work. I know I'm sharing too much personal information with you all. I do this. This is horrible that I do this, right? I think it's called being a good host, but other people want to slam me for it. Good for them. So, anyways, I come into the studio, and I'm sitting here. I'm on the computer, and I'm going. Now I'm going to type like that. My fingers have all been broken. So I'm over here chicken pecking like I do. and I see something move. And I thought, the door's locked. What was that? Eventually, I get hungry. This was months ago. This was like, I don't even, maybe over a year ago even. I get hungry. I leave for a minute and I go up the street and I grab something. There was a Smoothie King up here, whatever. Grabbed a protein bar or whatever and in a shake. Because like I said, I can't eat a lot of salt, so I have to eat certain foods or whatever. And I come back. I sit down. I start working on the thing again. What's crazy, though, is I had to get up to go to the restroom, and I thought I saw somebody standing by the window looking in. Like, leaned down. It was still daylight. So I walked over, and I went to open the door, and I didn't see anybody, and the ladies next door were all leaving. And the one girl that would go outside to smoke a cigarette every now and then, when I would go out to take a break, I'd see her, and sometimes we would talk. You know, we weren't like friend buddies or whatever, but she would talk to me. And I asked her a question. I said, earlier I heard you talking like you were panicked because she still had to clean up or whatever, and everybody else was leaving. And she's like, yeah, there's been some weird stuff. And she's like, what is it that you do again? Because I had told her. I said, well, I gave you my card. I do a show about the paranormal. She goes, that's right. That's right. She goes, we've been having weird things happen next door. Well, this happened after I did the show about the Brazilian exorcist. You see behind me, you know, and you can pan to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to them what that is.
The black.
These are acoustic foam tiles. It's to reduce the like the echo in here whenever we're recording a podcast. If we didn't have these, the sound would be a lot different. Our voices would bounce off the drywall.
Not to mention you'd hear the cars and everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with this soundproofing in here, and the whole wall is not covered in, but this wall, that wall, that wall, that wall has a pretty high up layer of it. I was here one night. That night, they had all left. I sat up here. My wife calls, checks on me. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just getting ready to do the recording, you know. I'm gonna finish it up. And I hear talking. Now, we have one of my lawyers, who's a real estate attorney, and I've employed him a couple times. He's right next door. There's two of them, two lawyers. I've used them both. They're good friends of mine. My mortgage broker shared the office with me at that time. He was never here. The lawyers weren't there. And I went around the whole building. There was nobody. The ladies next door had been gone. It was dark. Nobody in the building. But yet I come back inside and I sit down. I'm like, okay. And I'm about to go and get more information about this, the Brazilian exorcist, so I could tell the story. We start talking. We get into it. They give me a bunch of information. It was going to be very hard for her to talk and then translate, so it wasn't something that we could do. They couldn't tell the story. It was going to have to be me. And so when I'm done, I'm closing it up, finishing it up, whatever. I hear this argument. What sounds like an argument. It sounds like a man and a woman arguing. I don't know what it was. And I thought, what is that? Now, I don't speak fluent Vietnamese, but I understand some of it because I've been around Tony's family for 16 years. And I'm like, what is that? The people that run it are Vietnamese. They're not speaking Vietnamese. They're not speaking Mandarin or Cantonese. They're not speaking Russian, which is, I know a few words in Russian, a little bit of Polish, not much. But I know some. And I know how it sounds. And I'm pretty good with German, French, Spanish, whatever. It wasn't any of those languages. It wasn't a Far Eastern, it wasn't an Oriental-based language from the Orient. It wasn't an Indian dialect. It wasn't a Cyrillic. I don't know what it was. It wasn't Middle Eastern. I got a little bit of a recording, and I sent it to my friend who used to work with us, who is a big Star Trek guy, and I played it. I said, can you tell me, does this sound like Klingon? He could barely hear it, but then he heard distinct syllables and whatever. And he said, no, it's not Klingon. You know, he knows Klingon. So I sent it to my friend in the Middle East, and she analyzed it, and she's like, it sounded like ancient Sumerian, maybe, but weird, like different, not like, you know, she took a guess that that's what it was, but not for sure. She said she thought she might have heard some Assyrian, not Syrian, but Assyrian in there. She's in the Levant, in the Middle East, and she speaks very good, like she speaks like several languages. I have an archaeologist friend who's working on a dig in Egypt. I sent it to her. She's Berber. Tell them what Berber is, Anthony, so they know.
Berber is a type of it's an ethnic group that in North Africa. They're not necessarily
They're not Arabs.
Yeah, they're not Arabs, and they're not really like what you would consider African. They're kind of like a group of people unto themselves ethnically. Mm-hmm. They're their own people. Yeah,
and they are indigenous to that area. Mm-hmm. During the Moors, when they invaded, in the 600s-700s, they went in and they basically pushed Islam through an invasion, and those people were swept up in it. But what's crazy is that nobody could really understand what this was. So I go home, I call it a night. The next day, I come in, I talk to the ladies next door. One of the Vietnamese ladies spoke very good English. She says, a lot of weird stuff happening around here. Stuff falling off the shelves, things getting moved around. And I was like, yep, because when I came in, I thought I saw somebody inside of my freaking office. So I opened the door, and I'm armed. And I'm sweeping the building here, where, this 1,000 square foot, whatever this is, 1,100, whatever. I don't see anything. I talked to the lawyers next door. Nothing. There's nobody. We have a door that connects us. Crazy, weird stuff going on, though, right? Everybody's talking about there's stuff happening, being moved and things like that. We had a stack of those. What are those bags, those PRT bags?
Those tote bags?
Tote bags. They were scattered all over the place. Like somebody just threw everything in the air. So I spent about an hour cleaning up the party. And then I sat here, and then Anthony showed up, and then we did the live stream. Here's what happened, and I don't remember what number that live stream was, but I do remember this. And if I'd have to go with hours of content, I'd have to go back and try to find it. But I was sitting here on the live stream with you, kind people, and Anthony tells me, and I said, okay. So you went to the store, right, Anthony?
Yeah.
He goes to the store. I continue to talk. He wasn't even gone for a minute. And I see something like this in the corner of my eye. And I'm like talking, and I look over, and I'm like, really weird. I see a lighter-skinned, dark-haired person walking by the door right here to this room, to the studio room right here. and go to the bathroom. Now, you could say, hey, somebody walked in, but Anthony, when he left, I heard he locks the door.
I mean, we always lock the door.
We're vigilant.
Yeah.
We lock the door there, and we use a key. If I don't have a key, Anthony locks that door, I'd have to break the glass to get out. I mean, I'm not trapped. I'm not like, because I'll kick that glass in. I don't care. But, you know, and then we lock these doors, you know, extra layers of protection, whatever. I'm sitting here, and I know that I just saw somebody walk into that bathroom that looked like a light-skinned guy. Now, Anthony obviously is not, he's tan. He's not a light-skinned guy. And he was about the height of Anthony. And Tony, you weren't here that day. You weren't in the studio.
I was about to ask. I was like,
you weren't here. I don't think you were. So then Anthony comes back. I hear the door unlocking while I'm talking. There was a guest. I can't remember who it was, but they were talking. And they came in, and I was so preoccupied. I was sitting there going like, what is this, you know? And Anthony comes in. He sits down. I pick up my phone, and I text him. Check the building. Check the rooms. He does. There's nobody there. My door was locked. So who was that walked into the bathroom while I was on the live stream? So there's that story. And when you figure these people next door were having weird things happen, well, at the end of the night, I go to the restroom, and I'm standing there, and I hear what sounds like somebody sliding up against the wall. And once again, I begin to hear the sound of two people talking, only it's much more clear when I'm in the restroom this time. And I'm like, what is that? It does, again, sound like a male and a female, but the female doesn't sound like a mousy female. It sounds like a very, like, the way that they spoke sounded very, like that. It was, like, very, like,
Commanding?
like commanding and kind of, like, chopped, you know, the words were chopped.
Mm.
It wasn't like, you know, like, it wasn't like you hear, like a word in like German, like Fuchsenspiel, you know what I mean? Or nothing like that, you know, like you couldn't, you know, make it out. Like it wasn't like that, you know what I mean? And it was just like, it was not real fluid. It was like chopped up something.
kind of
Dub says like Korean. No, not Korean. It was, we couldn't compare it to any languages we knew. So I told Anthony about it. And I said, dude, I just heard it again. And he goes in there and it had stopped at that point. But the crazy thing is when I was in here with that door closed and not a completely soundproof room, but there's not a lot of acoustics going on. You know what I mean? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the point.
Yeah. It cuts back on the, you know, I was hearing it clear as day through that wall right behind me. So eventually these people next door moved out and it stopped. I don't know what to say, you know, but my wife gave me advice. She's like, don't go up to the studio by yourself. And I did it anyway. Something happened. So, moral to the story is, once again, somebody gives you advice, at least take it into consideration. I didn't take my own advice. I tell people always, you know, listen when somebody tells you. I should have been listening. And I never did figure out what that language was. Do you have cameras in the studio? Yes. Did we see anything on camera? No. Says, I bring my own shadow crew. Laugh out loud. Listen to your wife. Yes, exactly. She's the brains of the outfit.
Kat the Great asked, what kind of people were your neighbors?
They were nice to us. I mean, to us, they were never rude to us. They never said anything mean or anything like that.
They didn't seem weird.
Well, that's sad, Miguel. But
Mr. J asked, could be native Comanches were in Austin.
there was a lot of Comanches in this area. In fact, I found arrowheads in a creek right behind a startup company that I did security for, where me and Scorpion interviewed the abductee lady who had given us all these stories. And in fact, I was, because we had, like, they had a nice gym there too. This was in 2000, and they had a gym there. And I was in there working out. I would come early before my shift, and I would work out. These startup companies back in those days, man, people were wheeling and dealing, and they would, like, they had catered food from all these nice places. They had a gym. They had a basketball court. Folks, they had an arcade, okay, with like 6 different arcade games and like 2 or 3 pinball machines. I'm not joking. And then they had the Xbox, whatever was in style at that time, GameCube, whatever it was. They had all that.
You were working here?
I was working. I was doing security. I was the head of security there. Mm-hmm. And so I went in and early one day, and I was lifting, and a guy came in, and he was always in there. Remember I told you this guy reminded me of Falling Down, Michael Douglas?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, he comes in and he's all like, hey, I was down there by the creek walking around. He was kind of a goofy guy, but he was nice. He seemed harmless. I didn't get a bad feeling from him, anything like that. And I said, what'd you get? He goes, I got these arrowheads. Check them out. And there was like 2 of them, like nice. And we had a friend of ours that he gave me one. I don't know whatever happened to it. But I had several of them, and I gave it to a friend of mine to look at, and he told me, he goes, those are Comanche. And they look like the ones that I found when I was a kid out near Joppa, here in Texas. My dad's, on his mother's side, they're her ancestral home. And my great uncle, used to take us out there to go deer hunting. And I'd run around all over the place out there, get on a 4-wheeler and go, whatever. And, yeah, it was fun times. And I would go down to the creek. I found spearheads even. Really cool. And so the guy had found some right behind that building. So, that's about 15 miles from here, not that far. But, yeah, it didn't sound, though, like the Nurmana, which is the language that they speak. My grandmother was Comanche, so. And I'm like, I don't know what that was. I heard her speak it before. And I've heard Nahuatl, which didn't sound like that either. I'm pretty good with languages, and I didn't understand any of it. I don't know what that was. But, yeah, that was after the Brazilian exorcist. So there's that story. I mean, I've told different people bits and pieces of that story. I think I might have told part of it on the show or whatever. But, yeah, and so when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, yeah, stuff can happen. So any thoughts on your end? I got to take a really quick break. You guys can entertain the audience for 2 minutes. I'll be right back.
Sanskrit, is that still a spoken language? I don't think so, right? Because someone, let me see here.
It's a very ancient language.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But I think, doesn't Sanskrit, does that refer to the language or to the actual
I thought it was
writing?
the writing, but Rothian Fairmoon says, I know a variation of Sanskrit and have heard a variety of ancient languages. I might not have known what the language was, what it had been exactly, but I know at least what it was speaking. That's why I was just curious. I don't know what's made of that.
I don't know. I mean, because usually you can identify, even if you don't know a certain language, if you've heard it spoken.
You can kind of tell where, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can identify. Like, okay, that one time that I've mentioned it here on the show before, but when Wolf was passed out on the recliner, and then he woke up and looked right at me, and he just said something. Like I swear he said something in Latin, and he doesn't remember it at all. Like he woke up, he was like all bleary eyed, and he just said something in Latin, and then went back to sleep. And then when he woke up later on, I was like, hey, do you remember waking up and looking at me and saying something? I don't know what you said in some language. Maybe it was Latin. But so, I mean, I kind of have like the same experience in that regard. But I don't know. And I mean, like, why? You said it sounded like it was coming from next door, right?
Yeah, it was next door.
That's weird.
It was always from there.
Yeah, because
But you noticed something else, though. After they moved out, we didn't have any more.
issues.
Yeah, there were no more issues, so maybe it followed them. I don't know. Here's what's weird. You're talking about when I used to sit up and talk.
Yeah.
I think
I
this
thought I
is
heard
before
you
you
say
got
that.
your machine.
Yeah, I used to do that all the time. And my brother and them can tell you, since I was young, your mom could tell you that too, Anthony. I used to like be asleep and I'd wake up and say a bunch of stuff in different languages. I had a roommate that was German, and he had a friend that came from Hamburg who stayed for a while. He was from Berlin, but he rented a room for me, and we were all out there watching TV one night, and I fell asleep on the couch. And I sat up and I said a bunch of words, and they understood some of it. They said it sounded kind of Prussian. Prussian being P-R-U, not Russian, Prussian. And I'm like, I've never been to Germany at that point. So I was like, how the heck, I didn't know, I was learning German from them. And Scorpion saying, yep, and you've heard me do it too. Somebody asked me one time if I thought that I was, possessed or being possessed. I was like, no, I don't. Okay. And, I don't feel like something comes into my body and takes over. I am a believer in past lives, and some people are going to be like, oh, that's bullcrap, blah, 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 If you want to believe it. If you don't, you don't. Nobody's tying you to a chair and making you listen to PRT. I'm sorry that you get so offended and hurt.
Miguel says, hey guys, this one time I heard someone crying outside my window when I went outside to see what it was. I saw a duck behind a barbecue grill. When I went to see what it was, there was no one there. No, I think you shouldn't be chasing things like that. If you
Boom, go chasing waterfalls. Stick close to the creeks behind the university that you go to school at, and then go say boots on the ground. Yeah, that's what you should do. Right there. I just told you. It says, Mark says, Josh, I have some experiences in Texas I want to run by you sometime. Sounds good.
It's 11:11.
11:11. 11:11. Wop. We like to have fun, folks. Like that. You can't just be scared like all the time, Like, come on, you got to have some fun with it too.
we're all over the place.
I mean, I've worked in some really spooky places, and I've heard my name called, and I'm just like,
Ignore it.
I try
for
to
me.
have fun with it, dude. Like, they don't like it when you joke. Like, one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me, and I'll tell you, somebody asked me this the other day. They sent me a message, and they said, what's the weirdest thing that ever happened to you? I'll tell you one of them. And I have 3 or 4 people that are witnesses. Actually, I think your stepdad was with me. And I know it was either D or Scorp that were with me, one of them two. And we were at the office of the nightclub I used to run. Okay. We were all sitting there, and I was with the manager who at that time we were sitting there, and I was like the floor manager. We were talking, and we heard this bang, like a slap. The place was haunted. It was real bad. You guys heard Eddie Versace talking. That's not his real name. That's his nickname. Eddie V said something about it one day. He said, man, I don't like being in here. It's spooky. There's always something going on, And I'd go up there sometimes to do liquor order with my boss, who was my boss at that time, before he retired, and then I took over. And he was there one night, and we heard pool balls clacking. It was always weird stuff. My dog would growl,
Caleb.
Loki. Yes. Yes. Okay. We're not going to get into the meta because everybody's going to start accusing us of inside jokes. But yes, okay, I'm not going to repeat what that's about. But here's what happened. We heard the smack, right? And this was weird. And so I just kicked a rolling chair and I said, take a seat. because we're having a little meeting. The managers were having a meeting. And right before our eyes, that chair kind of went and stopped. Like it turned like to face us. Okay. Next time we go to our ashes, I'll have Big Sammy tell you that. He was there too. We were all there, and everybody just stopped, and I was like leaned up on it like this, I was just kind of like with my arms crossed, and I just kicked it with my foot, and I said, go ahead, take a seat if you're going to be in here. It's rude. And then the chair just kind of went like, and it faced us. And everybody was like, whoa, like freaked out. I've been around so much of this crap, dude. It didn't even like faze me anymore, dude. Like I was going up the stairs one time at that nightclub, and I could just, I talked about Eddie, bringing him on the show. He used to be the manager there, one of them. Of course, Tommy, he's down there in Port Aransas. He's got the summertime's real busy. But I'd like to have them come on the show sometime and talk about the crazy, creepy, scary things going on at that club. Very old place. It's like 200 years old. Like, it's crazy. It was like there before Texas was a country. And Texas at one time was a country. Before 1836, it was there. It was like a, it was like the turn of the 1800, like early 1800. It was one of the oldest buildings in Austin. And we were there. And I think it used to be like stables or something. It was like a stable or something. And it was like when Austin had just become a colony, like it was way back. There were a couple buildings that were there that were laid out. They were stone. And I just remember going up the stairs one time, and I heard like something whisper in language I couldn't understand and just kind of blow past me and go up the stairs. And I was like, what was that? But it just sounded kind of like, and it wasn't like it did it all the time, but you had to learn to tune it out. But I remember one night on a busy Saturday night, I walked up the stairs in the back, and I got up the top of these steep stairs to go up to the upstairs dance floor. And I looked, and I felt something tug on my, and I turned around and I looked, and down the bottom of the stairs was my towel. I had like a towel I could dry my hands on stains or clean up drinks, whatever, If there was a fight, blood, it was a rough place. And I turned around and I looked, and there it is at the bottom of the stairs. More than once, we had like bartenders, barbacks, or waitresses felt like something would tug on their sleeves or their backs. And I have a picture of a ghost from that place. I just haven't posted it in the group because I don't want to hear any crap about it, because it is a ghost. There were only 3 people there, me, the DJ, and the man, and my boss, the general manager, that took that picture. And something shows up behind me that looks like a barmaid. You know how they have the puffy shoulder sleeves?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've seen the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird.
It looks
we
just
got
like
it
a
in
woman, like a
outline
barmaid.
somewhere.
Super clear.
Yeah. There's something there that wasn't there. And I'm just kind of sitting there, and kind of smiling. And it's Christmas Eve. You could see the date on it. And it shows up. It was a regular picture, not a camera
And it's
or a phone.
she's super out of place too. Like
Yeah.
it's just you can look at everybody else and see what kind of clothes they're wearing, and you see her, and she just stands out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you don't see anybody that could kind of be like, oh, maybe that's her, in like a different angle.
There
there's
was
nothing.
no female there
There's
at
nothing.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. But this place that we were at, we would hear stuff. And one night I was there doing liquor order, count. We count, the order or whatever. And my boss was really sick. He had the flu. And I came in and I did it for him. And I had my dog there. And Ivan, he just starts, I had a big old English Mastiff. He just started growling. He was just like, "Rrr, rrr." And then I hear a bang, bang, bang. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, because I knew that was Charlie, the guy that delivered the booze. And so I went up there and I opened the door and he came in, and I was like, I'm actually glad you came in. And he's like, why, what's going on? I said, this place gives me the creeps when I'm here in the daytime, it's dark in there, and even in the daytime, it's dark, and the doors and windows are closed. And he says, he goes, there's 3 or 4 of these clubs that I deliver to up and down 6th Street. He's like, and this one is in the top 3 or 4. He said, the only one that was worse was Spirits. Now, Spirits was actually called Spirits, not because of the booze Spirits, but because of the ghosts. It was actually named that.
I was about to say how ironic, but
Yeah. And my friend used to be the manager there. And so he said ours was number 2 behind that one. And Spirits was a very creepy place, too. I had weird stuff happen to people I knew there. And so while we're sitting there talking and he's telling me a story about something that had pulled on his shirt over at Spirits, I was sitting there and then we hear clack. And it's from the pool balls upstairs, from the pool tables. And one day I'm trying to get a day where Squid can come in, probably be on a Sunday, and he can come and sit in the studio when he's off and just confirm a lot of these stories and then talk about what happened to him at Buffalo Billiards. Buffalo Billiards, there's a ghost that's there. A guy was killed there. It's a very famous case or story that and Squid can probably tell you the legend.
Oh, look, Mr. J knows. He said Clay Pit, too.
Clay Pit, too. Yes, you know.
Mr. J is an Austin-born.
Yeah, Mr. J knows. Clay Pit. Clay Pit is very close to a story that I did about a building downtown. Let's just put it that way. So there you go. Very creepy. Yeah, named Spirits because of the souls freed of their bodies there. Yeah, it was scary. And in fact, D, he has a story from one night. I'm going to tell you this story, D. I know that you can hear they're listening or whatever. But I'm going to tell my brother's story. If you guys want a ghost story before we bounce, say yes. Give me at least half a dozen people or I'm going to bail. Because I don't want to keep everybody. It's getting late, and it's tomorrow's Monday, and it's a big day for us. Security, we have to answer for our sins, and everybody has, Monday has things to do. So let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. All right. Because we'll get that one person that'll be like, I don't want to hear this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You talk too much. Somebody, did they not say that, Anthony?
Yeah.
They emailed us saying that I talk too much.
On a podcast.
So I'm going to have somebody behind me that just does sign language, and I'm just going to mumble and go,
I think we should just do our shows like how we did in the beginning on mute.
Or just like write out everything you're going to say on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera so you don't have to say it. You just make everyone read it.
Just
A
paper, how they do those. Yeah.
Or it's like what they just draw.
The signs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like in your chicken scratch handwriting, no less.
War criminals. Loki, you talk good. Jason Basad, yeah, exactly. That's what I say. Scooby-Doo color forms. So here's what happened to my brother. Okay, and I don't know if correct me if I'm wrong here, D, if I'm telling you wrong, but he fell asleep at a club called Melagio years ago, but I think it was called Shadow Lounge at that time or whatever. But anyway, he was upstairs and he got shaken awake by something. Now, I'll be honest. He told me he had a few drinks with the owner and the manager, and he had imbibed a little bit. And in fact, I believe it was Henry, Eddie V. Y'all know him as Eddie. Henry, who eventually, folks, I'm going to be real honest, okay? Eddie was wanted, okay? And eventually he got caught. He did his time, paid his debt to society, and then he came back out. Because back in the day,
things were wild.
It was
a wild time.
It was a wild time. There was a lot of things that went on. There was some things, okay? And I was always kind of, whatever. But Eddie and him had some drinks or whatever, and Eddie took off with his girlfriend, who's a very nice girl, but now married. She's a good friend of mine and Nellie's, And so Dee stayed there to sleep it off. He had called me, and I was tired, and I had a business meeting in the morning. I was trying to get my company going, doing security. And I said, hey, man, just sleep upstairs, The owner was a good friend of ours. He ain't going to tell you nothing. Just tell him I told you to, whatever. he gets shaken awake by somebody who was frantic. Okay. He wakes up, he looks, and he was honest. He was, first I thought I was like I was dreaming, but I knew that I wasn't dreaming. And there's this guy standing there, and he goes, dude, this dude looked like he was straight out of the 1800s. Like, you ever seen like a Western and there's like a stable boy and they come and they're like, I'll take your horse, sir, you know?
Yeah,
It was like something out of Gunsmoke, according to what he told me. And like he said, he thought he was, thank you for that donation, Larry. I greatly appreciate it. Savannah Dawson, thank you. Y'all are so kind. Thank you so much, because it does make it easier to sit here and talk for too long, apparently, to some people. I just don't understand people. But anyways, he says something shook him awake, and then he's like, he sits up and he's like, what's going on? What's going on? And he looks around, and there's nothing there. And then he looks to the right just as the door's closing. So he's like, if I wasn't hung over at that point, he's like, it was like 5 a.m, you know. He's like, I would have gotten up and went and actually followed this person. But he thought, you know, it's probably somebody that works there. They were cleaning. He didn't realize at that time, what time it was. So he's like, dude, I just laid down and went back to sleep. So he's telling me and Squid, Scorpion, and maybe Loki might have heard this story too. But we were all there. Maybe Starscream was there. I don't know if he's in the chat, but you know, there were different people. We were all there talking before the weekend or whatever at our bar down the road. And I always worked at the same club, except for a little hiatus I took when I worked at a place called The Realm. And it was during a concert where somebody got blasted with a shotgun. It was a rough time, folks. Okay. And I was, you know, rough trade. It was all like that. It was bad. But that was our job, you know? And so that was the only time I didn't work Roxy. I always worked at the Roxy. Now these other guys, they'd work at Roxy, but then they'd work at some of the other, bars too. And in particular, that one, D would work there 2 nights a week. And I remember getting a call in the morning from the owner saying, hey, man, your brother's here and he's crashed out, whatever. And he was wondering if you'd give him a ride. He's going to do a couple errands for me. And I said, sure, I'm up now. And I finished my meeting. It was about 10 a.m. So I drove down there to pick him up. And I sat there talking to the owner, manager, and bar manager. They were all there. A guy named Money. Really cool guy from El Paso. I don't know if Scorpion, you remember Money, D. We all started talking. And then D tells the story of what happened to him. And there was this guy that used to come in there pretty regularly, was good friends with the owner. And he said, what did this person look like? And when my brother described it to him, he said, oh, dude. He goes, that's a spirit. That's a ghost. And we're like, really? And he's like, yeah. He goes, did you pursue him? Did you go see who? He goes, no, I didn't. Well, apparently he was killed there, like back in the 1800s. And the story is, and all these bars have like a resident ghost, and there's a story to them, like Mohawks used to be Caucus Club. The story of the gambler who fell down the dumbwaiter and broke his neck. Well, I thought that was just a silly legend until one of the female bartenders and my friend Noga actually saw the spirit. And now Eddie V had told me that because he was managing that place at that time. There's stories like that everywhere downtown. Downtown, if you're a ghost person, and me and Ken were kind of joking about this yesterday. He said that the conference center where we're going to be holding the conference is haunted. And he goes, but what in Texas isn't, right? He made this joke. You remember? Uh-huh. And so anyway, we're there and we're talking. And Joe Money, he says on there, he said, dude, are you talking about, you know, and then he goes into a description of what my brother saw. And this other guy, Jay, he says, yeah. He's like, I saw it one time when I used to manage this place back before the current owner had it. It was called Wiley's. Okay, and Jay was like, I worked here. I managed it, and I saw this spook, you know, this specter, you know. He said it looks like a teenage guy, He's like, but what's so creepy about him is that when he walks away, he looks like a normal person. He talks to you. When he turns and walks away, you see holes in his back, like 4 holes in his back. And I'm like, what 4 holes? Like he got shot? He goes, no. Like somebody took a pitchfork and stabbed him in the back.
Oh.
He was murdered, and they never did figure out how. He was a stable boy. So that is that story. And so that specter, or whatever it was, tried to wake my brother up, really frantic. Well, here's the really crazy thing about it's not that it's not already crazy. I've said this before. It's already crazy. Somebody had cracked one of the glass downstairs. So I think, and me and my brother and everybody, we came to the conclusion that this ghost was trying to wake him up because somebody had tried to break in downstairs. When the lead bartender talked about it, and if I remember correctly, it was Money that said it. It's Texas Corpse. I don't know where he's at. Maybe he's on the chat, but he can give you a little insight. He worked there, and there was another sighting of this specter or whatever. It didn't happen to him, but I know that one of the bartenders, Brian, I think, saw it, and he has a story, and Scorp maybe can text it to you. The story is that he was killed. He was stabbed to death by a pitchfork. And when he was, I guess, initially hit, when he fell, he hit his head or something. I don't know. I heard different stories. But, yeah, the other time that he was seen by the lead bartender, when he saw him, somebody was kicking the back door trying to get in after they had closed. So he goes, just ignore it, whatever, Well, the person, whoever was kicking the door, had gone around to the side, and they had one of those pull down, what are they called? You know how RS has those kind of like in a garage? He closes the outside to his patio.
Oh, like those.
Like
Garage.
I forgot what they're called.
They're like garage doors with windows,
glass.
but they're made
Yeah.
of glass. Yeah.
So they had one of those. This person had gone over there and started to kick in one of those, and this kid comes running up and says, "Hey, Joe," called him Joe, like flat out called him his name, and said, "Hey, there's somebody over here kicking." And then he said the guy, when he turned around, this still gives me the chills. When him and a guy named Chuck that worked there told me this, and Chuck said we both saw it. He had holes in his back. And they thought it was weird because whoever stuck him, he was a little skinny kid, it went all the way through, and he had a white shirt, and you could see red dots up in the front. But in the back, it looked like jagged. And then the kid runs up the stairs, and they hear him run up like a flesh and blood person. Well, Eddie was upstairs with the owner. And they go over there, and sure enough, there's somebody sitting there kicking, And if I remember correctly, Scorpion, correct me if I'm wrong, but you were the one that actually was told to go and confront the guy. And so him and James, the other security, the African-American kid, they went out there and they pushed the guy off the patio, got him out of there. Guy was just drunk and wasn't even at the right bar. His girlfriend was like, the fuel was next door. And she's like, it's at fuel, whatever he was looking for. And my friend, the boxer, John Hall, used to be next door. So he better not go kicking that door because he'll get his ears boxed off. But anyway, he went next door and it was like, oh, okay, maybe he left his phone or something. I don't know if you remember that, Scorp. But what's crazy, though, is that when they went upstairs, because they were like, who's this teenager in the club? And how's he know my name? Who is this guy, And they go upstairs, and there are the managers and the couple of the bartenders. They were off. The upstairs was huge. And there's the owner. And they're like, what are you talking about? Nobody came up here. And, of course, Joe and Chuck, Joe Money's like, what the heck? Money wasn't his real name. It was, we called him Joe Money. And he says, dude, oh, God, we got 666 people in the chat.
No. Someone
get
leave
off.
or join.
Somebody leave or join.
I saw that we were at 6:59. I was like, man, I hope we don't get to the 6.
And we're staying here too. Oh,
Of course, YouTube would make it.
Yeah, they
like-
would just leave because over
Yeah.
there, it's they're leaving. Oh, there it goes,
Yeah, 'cause right
669.
there.
Thank goodness.
All right.
Thanks, Tube of You. But that story was really crazy, man. And these are the kind of stories when I write my ghost book, which I will eventually do. I'm a man of my word. I said I was going to write books. I did it. So I was going to make a podcast. I did it. I'm not a dreamer. I'm a doer. You know? But crazy thing is that money, they see this guy go up the stairs and they're in shock. So when it happened to my brother, everybody's standing around talking about it, and they're like, you know, who's this kid? He wasn't a bad kid. He was benevolent. There was a friend of mine who was a Moroccan guy named Amir.
yeah. Kate the Great said even after death, that kid was a real one, which made me laugh.
And Amir was locked in the freezer. Weird, crazy thing happened. There was a fight, and somebody decided to be cute and close the freezer up and put like a mop stick or something and blocked him from coming out. And they beat up one of the bartenders. Now, we talked about this the other day. We're not going to get into war stories and fights and all that, but I ended up having to take care of this individual in a fist fight because they punched the DJ's girlfriend and they caused something very bad to happen. I did it on my birthday. That and plus somebody put a price on his head. So anyway, it was just for knocking him out. It wasn't killing somebody. But anyway, there we go. We're back to that number. But this guy, him and his guys, they systematically, how do you say it? They strategically went in there and they jumped this guy, the manager, and they beat up the DJ. The owner got attacked. We think it might have been like a robbery that didn't go the way they wanted it to because they didn't know James and a couple of the other bouncers were there. Scorpio was there. So there was a fight and they got driven out. But this guy, Amir, was locked in the freezer. And he said the door opened. He was pushing, couldn't get out. And then the door opened. And he said this kid was standing there. And he said this kid looked like he couldn't have been 16 years old. And he said, hey, man, they need your help. And then he just like turned around and walked off. And he said, dude, I just caught a glimpse of this kid. And when I saw him from the back, it looked like he had holes in his back. So one of the many ghostly residents downtown Austin. Now, my friend, Loki, said that we should start a ghost tour. Now, they already have those. And I've done 2 of them. I did one with my wife, and it was okay. But it was kind of just like that, oh, yeah, and then over here at the Driscoll, and then, oh, there's a child that they hear, and blah, blah. Wasn't all that exciting. I don't want to start anything, and then they start attacking me like, oh, you don't think we're good? Oh, let's start a war. I don't want to do that. But I have the inside scoop on working down there for almost a decade. I have the inside scoop on what is haunted, what is really haunted, and what the spirits look like, and where to go. So, something to think about. You know, maybe we'll do something like that in the future, or I could train some people to do the ghost tour and then let them do it. Because I know a lot of the club owners, I know a lot of the people down there, I know the community very well, and I know the stories. A lot of creepy stories. The stories about the little monitos, the duendes, and a lot of the stories about the ghosts. But anyways, folks, I hate to shut it down. It's 3.5 hours, 650 people in the chat, and we love you all. And thank goodness it got off of that horrible number that was on earlier. But I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you heard what I said, what Barton Nunley said, and what Larry Fisher said. And yeah, Join us next Friday where we have a special guest, and he can shed a little more light on this thing about Claudia too.
What should they expect for Tuesday, Anthony?
What are we giving them on Tuesday? What do they
Tuesday is going to be the second part of the
Oh yeah, that's right.
of the
Rick
the Dogman
Atchison
episode that Rick Atchison
sat in on.
with y'all.
Penny Van.
Oh, I had some people say they also liked my shirt. This was one that you made for me, wasn't it, Wolf?
Yeah, I had that one.
I
That
always
is
thought that was a cool shirt.
that is
One of my
the
favorites.
that is the Frazetta.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's basically Dracula meets the Wolfman. Mark D says Satan himself chased me down. You know, I'll get Lyle to tell that story about the devil. When Lyle comes on the show, we're going to go over some things. And Lyle's going to come. We got Nick Redfern coming on too. We got Gary Brand who's going to come on the show. He's got some cool stuff, man. I really like talking to Gary. He was a cool dude, man. And then we got a surprise guest coming on.
Well, I hope you're happy, Josh. Penny Van said, you talked too long and now I'm late for bedtime.
I saw that.
Yeah.
And she had to slap herself.
Yeah.
I really apologize. I talk ad nauseum, folks. That's just what I do. I'm a bit of an a-hole, but at least I'm not an ask-hole. You know? Folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. I know we've gotten some criticism about how I literally got a text the other day saying that I was going too long. I get along with this person. This person's not, they I don't know if they were being serious or not. They never clarified that they weren't being serious, but they said that I needed to start doing shorts and then shorten my show. And I'm like, but then I got a text from another podcaster, a friend of mine, who said that I should do all three, do the hour long, do the 3 hour, and then do one that's like a shorter, whatever. Miguel, yeah. Get with me through Facebook Messenger or through Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. Send me your stories, man. And King of Hecamundo. Do you know what that means? Do y'all know what King of Hecamundo is?
Well, it's an anime thing.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's that's what he's doing it for, but I'm not sure what it actually means.
For the anime?
Not character. It's like a land of the dead, basically, in anime.
Yeah.
Huh.
So King of Made in the World?
Is that what it means?
Well, it's kind of, yeah. I mean, it's a weird translation. It doesn't translate correctly. It's like King of the World, but it's like Hecka. Go ahead.
Made would be Echo, like Hecho, but he's like Hueco. So I don't know what
How does he spell it?
means.
Let me look real quick.
H-U-E, yeah.
Yeah, Hueco.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I never even looked closely enough. I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's a Bleach reference.
Oh, Bleach, the cartoon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Didn't know that. So I saw a really cool Fire Emblem shirt. And they had like Marth on there, like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And they had this crossed swords. And I thought, that's cool, but people probably won't know if I wear that. They probably won't know that that's Fire Emblem. You know what I mean? So I was like, I'm going to get
I was just playing Fire Emblem on the Switch.
And I saw Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro. And they had a Rao one too, but you could just see his silhouette. And I was thinking, people aren't going to know who Rao is. And then I know.
Is Hueco Spanish for bones?
I don't know.
Bone World?
Might be.
Because that's kind of what it is. It's like the land of the Hollows.
Land of the Hollows. That doesn't make sense, though.
I'm trying to.
No, Bone is.
Well, in the anime, the creatures that live
Somebody
there.
tell me right now. I know Bone. My sister, my mom used to tell her all that. Like I forgot what it was. Dang it! Now I'm gonna sit here and try to.
Yeah,
remember.
Hueco is like hollow, hole, opening, gap.
I didn't know
So like
that.
the creatures that inhabited that land that he's talking about is called hollows. So Huecamunda makes sense.
Okay.
Hueso. Huesl. Hueso.
Yeah. Because my so yeah, there it is. Yeah, because my wife just said that the other day about, she said it in Spanish, bone, whatever. I need to brush up on it. I don't use it enough. I use it. I used to use it when I was working security doing it at the construction sites. My Spanish was really on top.
You were
because
really good when you were watching, what is it?
Narcos.
Narcos.
Yeah,
You had it real good
I
then.
didn't even have to because if you hear it enough or if you're around it, you're better at it. You know?
Yeah, that's like I've been
start to
thinking
lose
about
it.
wanting to watch Vietnamese stuff so I could get back into it.
Yeah, because you used to be very fluent. But
Yeah.
it seems like you're a little less.
I lost a lot of it.
Yeah, his invisibleness. Yeah, I agree with that. That's very possible.
Telenovelas helped me.
Hueco means gap. Yeah, that's like proper Castilian, Penny, but I think the way it's being used is like hollow. Yeah. Hueso bone. Hueco means hollow, yeah. Thank you, Aldo, for that translation.
I told Nelly I'd teach her Spanish.
That's weird, Mike. Mike Turner just said something weird. Tara Turner. I'm not related to these people. In fact, Mike, I think Mike's African American. Tara, I don't know what she is, but she said it's awesome show, every show. I appreciate that. We try to do our best. Penny Van says she had to translate. Yeah. Well, my wife, I was helping to translate for her, and we had a good time watching those. Anyways, folks, thank you. Dirty words first. That's right, Max. Everybody knows that. Lolo says, just one more story. I'm sorry. I got to go. I got to run because I haven't eaten today. And I know what you're going to say. You can stand to miss a meal. I know.
But he hasn't eaten all day.
Yeah,
and like me and Anthony have already
eaten. It was
eaten.
like a juice from Juiceland. You know, Mike, I get some weird numbers that pop up all the time. I see 1111 quite a bit too. Like, or 111. I see that all the time. 1111. Yeah. Yeah, Mark D, the email is right there, Josh Turner at prtpodcast.com. What is that, Mundo Los Hermanos Armados? What is it? Armadas? What is that? The Brothers Armadas?
Movies? Let me see if you said anything before
Regina Parton says Guinness record for nonstop talking is 100 hours. Josh could beat that. Well, you'd have to. Do you have to keep talking, or can you take? Is there pauses or what?
Well, what about that guy who did the filibuster? Didn't he do it for a crazy amount of time?
What is that? What are you talking about? He did a filibuster where?
In court, or not in the Supreme
City
Court?
Hall?
You know, he did in the Supreme Court. It was like something where he filibustered for like a real long time. And like you have to keep talking because the moment you stop is when someone else is allowed to interrupt you, I think, right?
I don't know.
Well,
They made a movie about it.
filibuster means you keep talking, and as long as you're talking, they can't proceed forward with like
Yeah, as long as you have the
yeah.
floor.
with like passing or voting
You don't
on a
have to
certain
just
bill.
keep speaking, dude.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, okay. Thank you, Hueco Mundo. Sorry. Okay, guys. Hope to see you at the conference. Get your tickets because they are going to be gone eventually. At least the VIP. If you want the VIP, you need to order them. You need to get on there and order them. So there's going to be a lot. There's some changes we're making to the lineup, which is going to be cool. There's going to be some, cool people that weren't going to be able to speak and that they now will.
I want to thank. I think we all want to thank Phil for even though he can't make it, he's still more than willing to do something for us, like putting his presentation together.
Who?
You mean Paul?
Paul, not Phil.
Paul Sinclair.
Yeah, Paul Sinclair,
Paul
not Phil.
Sinclair, yeah. Okay, folks. Wow, that's crazy. All right, thank you guys. I appreciate it, man. We got to run. Thank you so much for tuning in. Check out Tuesday's show. It's another werewolf, dogman, whatever. And then we have next Friday we have a guest. We're going to talk some more weird, crazy stuff. And then Sunday I'll tell some more stories. All right, thank you. Good night. Oh, and thank you to everyone that donated.